Rock and roll. All right. Lovely. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode... What the fuck episode is this? Episode 8.
That's right. It's 8. I knew it.
You don't know this.
Yeah,
you
I
haven't
do.
listened to any of that.
I keep up, man. I'm a fan.
You can hear yourself pretty well.
Yeah, I'm
can't
pretty
you?
good, man. I'm loud,
Okay.
too.
Yeah.
I'm loud,
I think
man.
I think we're gonna get a good mix together.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Our guest today is Mr. Mean Dave.
You can just mean Dave. It's fine. Or
Okay.
Dave. Yeah, man. No formal mister.
No formalities.
No, I'm no
I got
dad.
you a bunch of nice snacks.
Thank you. Yes. No, believe me, I came here for the snacks primarily.
Yeah.
So,
How
know
are
me.
you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Just
Good.
rolled out here on good. How much?
I have no idea.
How long a public transportation journey? I left the house at 12:10. I live in Newark, California.
Ugh.
Walked from there to the Dumbarton Express,
Okay.
so I could take the bus across the Dumbarton Bridge to get to Palo Alto Caltrain station, so I could ride the
Jesus.
Caltrain,
Right.
which lets out right here in San Francisco, and ride it for free because I have a Clipper card that allows me to ride VTA and Caltrain for free for my girlfriend.
Wow, God bless you.
Yeah, and I try to avoid. This is me working what we talked about, our anonymous
right,
program.
right.
But I've been because I cheat a lot of Bart, and I don't feel bad about it either. I mean, I know it's a problem and all that, but I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah.
I don't.
No,
It doesn't
I
keep me
know.
up at nights. It's more the fact that. I know in working an honest program, I know that dishonest or deceitful behavior or anything.
I lie to the insurance people constantly.
People do shit all the time, but the thing is I also am like aware of it, and I don't want to do it necessarily. I'd like to, Here was what I told my friend who was in recovery. We were driving, and he was dropping me off at the cigar shop. He goes, "How many of those do you smoke?" And I'm like, "I don't really smoke that many as I did before when I had disposable income, when I had a day job and stuff.
Right.
But when I now, being that I live primarily off my comedy money,
Nice.
that's not that nice. I mean, it's all right. It was just something I fell into about a year and a half ago. But
Okay.
and I've been doing it all right with it. And some days, months it pays better than others. But for the most part, it's like living at a poverty level,
Right.
and it's living within your means. And I have very slim means. I don't drive. I don't have a car.
Right.
But and so therefore I don't have disposable income to spend on cigars. So I don't smoke nearly as many cigars as I used to. However, I cheat Bart. So I told him, I said, there's give and take. So it's like if I have enough money to pay for Bart, I'll pay for Bart, and then I'll also ruin my health smoking more cigars.
I always feel like I need to break the seal, like especially when talking to people who I have to be honest with. Not the Denny's waitress necessarily.
Yeah.
But like when I'm like talking about and someone says something nice about me, and part of it I think is just the bullshit self-talk that I have. Like I can't accept.
It's
a
you
good-
being honest with
compliment.
yourself more than other people, I think.
But it's also like I have to just go, oh, and by the way, I did this.
Yeah.
And then once that seal is broken, usually the other person's like, oh yeah, I do the
Yeah,
same
they
fucking
don't.
thing.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah. Did you
It's like,
have you ever heard that old joke? Someone told me this in recovery. A sponsor and a sponsee sit down, and the what was it? Sponsee pays for the meal. Pays with a $100 bill, and the waitress gives them change for gives them the change for the 100 and didn't take out the money.
Oh, okay.
And the sponsee's like, "Oh, what should I do about it?" And like, "Well, hey, you know what to do with the program, whatever." So, and the sponsee ends up letting the waiter know and all that. Month later, same sponsee are sitting there eating dinner, and this time the sponsor pays with 100, and the waiter comes back with change. And gives them the change, doesn't charge, just makes the change for the 100, doesn't, and then sponsor just pockets it, and the sponsor's like, "Wait, whatever happened to an honest program?" He goes, "Well, it bothered you."
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah,
So
it's
one of those things where I've seen and heard it made for a lot of fun as far as like recovery and perspective and all that kind of crap. So.
Right. How long have you been sober?
It'll be 5 years, September 29th.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So that's it's kind of one of those things where actually I just did a show last night that I'm pretty. Have you done Tourette's Without Regrets?
Yeah,
I thought
I
so.
talked about it I think on either last episode. I've talked about it a couple of times.
Did you have good experiences doing it?
So I did it 3 times.
Yeah.
First 2 times, yes. Third time, no. I don't think the third time was all their fault. I think it was just a kind of a.
Where were you in the lineup on that third time?
probably somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
I did the comedy, but really it's me and my guitar doing comedy.
I'm surprised that it didn't, like, I was just thinking, like, oh, you're probably a hit at this fucking...
So the first time I did it, I did Bump and Grind.
Yeah.
It went really well.
Yeah,
Second time I did it, it was at the Fuck America show, and I sang a song about... like making fun of everybody and making fun of me, and it's that Facebook song.
I think I remember. Yeah.
And so that went over actually really well. And then the third time I decided.
Oh, what did you do? You played with fire.
I decided,
with fire.
yeah. Well, here's first things first. They didn't have. Something was wrong with their liquor license, so everybody's sober. Which is not a good thing.
Oh, they brought in their own, or they snuck in their own.
Right. Or they're probably high anyway.
They're high, yeah.
That's first things first. Number two, it wasn't very dark. It was kind of like...
It was light.
More light.
Yeah, lit up.
And I decided,
it wasn't very dark when I performed last night either.
Right. I decided, okay, I'm going to do my song stuff. I'll do the first, since I have 7 minutes or 6 minutes or whatever, I'll do 3 minutes of a song. And then I'll do, I want to talk about a couple of things. Which is technically, I think back on it, I'm like,
a good idea.
That's stand-up, is what that is. Yeah. So I decided to do my first ever try at stand-up in front of 200 people.
Yeah.
And so I also, I sing my song, goes all right. I take off my guitar and continue to talk, and I immediately realized I am naked without my guitar.
Yeah.
And
nice job.
I don't feel right. And then I just soldiered ahead. I fucked up on a lot of the words. I didn't get the premises correctly.
You're in your head.
The first half of that went okay, and then the second half just like they don't boo there, but I could when I finished it, they just kind of
they're like, wow, you just really I've seen shit like that. It's funny.
Right. And I knew that the things I was going to say were contentious, but I knew that if I phrased it the right way and I packaged it the right way, it was going to go okay.
Yeah.
But I did not realize until I took off my guitar, this is not going to go well.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't try to do that there.
It's a marathon of a fucking show. It's better to be up early and part of the early things I felt. I've never done it. It was my first time last night. And I've heard a lot of let's just say it was exactly what the show is exactly what I expected. I've heard a lot of things. It's got a huge, long time reputation, all that.
And they're nice people. They're nice people.
The person I know who is Wonder Dave was my window into it, and he booked me. He got me booked for that show, and I love Wonder Dave. Yeah. And they have a lot of fun. And I think I would have had more fun had I been a personality that was booked there or tried to participate when I was still getting high and drinking. But I definitely would have been somebody that probably would have pet the cat backwards a little bit more.
Right.
And nothing against it. I just know that after, it's one of those things, like, it's kind of like when I did Comedy Day last year too. It's like, this is something that I would have been more excited to do maybe like 3-4 years ago. And now it's not that it wasn't exciting. I had a good time. Set went all right. I was up at 11:30. This is like 2.5 hours of the fucking show.
Right.
And they've got like, they had the competition of penis drawing, painting competition. They had their all their various dances, all kinds of fun, sideshow shit and erotica and whatever.
Yeah, it's a variety show.
Yeah, and then by the way, here's a fucking dude telling jokes and And I also kind of like got the impression, it's like, I'm glad I knew Wonder Dave because he's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Anybody else there could really, nothing against him, but could really give a fuck.
Right.
And it wasn't like, and I had a good experience. I didn't have a bad set, but I also was sort of it's one of those shows that, again, I'm like, this is and I brought one of my buddies from recovery. He wanted to do something last night, so he drove. We could have stayed at recovery meeting to the end and got there in plenty of time for me to do my set. Instead, we got there when it began at 9 because I'd never done it before, and I wanted to watch the show. And I watched the show, and I'm like, okay, I it's a lot of fun. But I might have got a good headshot out of it, taking their photos in their photo booth because they take nice photos in that. Yeah. So it's
a very East Bay show.
And nothing against it either. Like
the burlesque crowd, you know that type of crowd.
There's
a lot of. I'm talking myself into enjoying what's happening on stage.
You have to be high, and you have to drink.
No,
I think you do.
I think you have to. Maybe that's a part of it.
I've done.
But there's a lot of like Oh, the body positivity or the
I'm wanking. I'm giving the jerk off motion right now.
Right.
I've done shows for drag queens. For whatever reason they've kind of vanished in a lot of ways, or they stopped running shows. But I did a lot of shows that were produced by drag queens and other and other kind of that. I had a lot of fun and was very welcomed in that world. My style of humor and whatnot, for whatever reason. This was, again, this was when I was still drinking and getting high and stuff. And not like it was that much of a different in my act, but I felt like I was sometimes a little more reckless and silly and whatever. And this was one of those shows where it's like, I know that it tries to appear, or I don't want to say it tries, but I mean, it's one of those, I want to say there's a lot of paradoxes. That's what I feel like in kind of what I'm seeing.
What do you mean?
Well, it's just the way kind of something, just the way. I mean, it's a huge fucking auditorium, right? And then when I'm hearing and they're keep it down. We're trying to do a show here. I'm like, motherfucker, you've been doing this show forever. This is gonna be fucking.
Oh, to the audience, they were saying that?
Not they. I just want to say, every now and then there'd be for instance, there was something that went on. I don't want to be saying anything out of school or nothing, but it was something happened where I thought it was part of the show, and audience because the show is so loose,
right?
And so off, trying to be off the wall and whatever and all that. Somebody got up from the crowd and started talking. I didn't know they were. I thought they were part of the show.
Oh, Jesus.
They got up and said something, and then lo and behold, we find that no, this is just somebody who might be a little inebriated early on too, and had to be escorted back to their seat.
Right.
They almost needed security. Even got over there.
Right.
But I felt like it could have totally been handled with a little more warmth, and that's when I started kind of see a little bit more of this. That's why I'm saying it's one of those things where and it's my instincts sometimes that that hit me where it's it's a good show for the people that are a part of all that. I'm just one of the I felt more like an outsider, and again this is, and I've been a part of all kinds of different outsider type events or whatever.
Sure.
And this is one of those things where I'm you're not real outsiders. This is definitely more of
that's what I get.
I want to say it's almost like a big ass show, a big ass midlife crisis.
So that's what I get
20 and
from
30-year-olds.
In a lot of exactly. That's what I get
crisis.
from the East Bay people. So I've been thinking about moving to New York in
really?
year or so, possibly.
Why, to be more anonymous or what?
No, to be closer to the music and the comedy that I want to be a part of.
Good luck.
So, but the thing that bothers me the most about the San Francisco, or let me rephrase it. The thing that bothers me the most about the Berkeley-ish, Oakland-ish kind of hippie mama type of people, which that's not that whole scene, but is that it does make believe that it's all outsiders. It does make believe that it is, oh no, this isn't high school. And yet you sit there for a little bit and everybody kind of gets drunk and you realize this is very high school. This is exactly cliquey. This is exactly this. Well, everybody has a marching song and everybody has a this and that. I don't like that stuff.
Yeah, but I don't think you can escape it anywhere. I think it's one of those times where, because I think it's more of a condition of technology and social media and everybody living in their own fucking head. Okay. Being that, I was just thinking about it on the way out here because I was doing some meme. I made that stupid Nike meme. I don't normally like participating in anything that's part of the general culture, but I thought about it on the way to. I thought about it on the way to the bus, and I'm like, no one's made an O.J. Simpson version of the Just Do It ad. Right. And I'm like, oh, that somebody should. And I'm like, I bet there's a meme generator, and I found one. Mm-hmm. And so I had to make an OJ meme just so that I could put a timestamp on it
of the Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, Kaepernick. Yeah, just believe in something even when no one else believes you didn't do it. And I like. Because I was gonna make a post somebody should make this meme, but I don't want to. And then I'm like, I should make it, even though it's I hate hacky shit like that. Right. But it was just fun to do. And
do you ever feel like you're sometimes I know I've okay. No, I'm sorry, no. Do you ever feel like you're anti like is so anti that it goes and turns around on
I'm
itself?
not an anti. In a way, no. It's like that's what I get called that. I've gotten called that by my buddy Butch Escobar. Every now and then he'll try to bust my balls like out of nowhere. Like he just it's usually when he does this, I know he's waiting at like at a BART station or something. And he's just trying to kill time, and he'll catch one of my posts that like, and it's usually only a post that has like, some notoriety, and Mean Dave's just being cool means being anti-cool, and then I'm like, I've never been cool, man, and I everything that I've done, but I'm a compulsive nonconformist. I've talked about this in recovery, where that's actually what I saw. That's also why I looked at the show last night as like I get a little I like performing in smaller shows than large shows. I'm not a big fan of performing to hundreds of people. Okay. Only in the sense that it's harder to get a read on laughs if I'm doing stand-up comedy. And it's just one of those things where it feeds an ego. It doesn't feed my ego. The type of ego that it feeds, I feel, is like very dangerous in doing anything at a performance level where no one gives a fuck who you really are. Okay. I mean, you're not like, there's people that really carry themselves with an arrogance after performing at shows like that or whatever, thinking that you really like connected. And I'm like, nah, I don't think you did. I think you entertained you entertained a large group of people and all that stuff, but I just don't believe that you really connect with people, at least unless you're a well-known, established personality. If you're communicating to more than, say, 500 people in a audit or some scattered warehouse with like hundreds of people that really they're only interested in just having a place to get high and watch some weird shit.
True.
No one's like taking notes and this act was really.
What do you want from comedy?
Money to live. That's it. And the only reason I only got into this because people make fun of me and laugh at me behind my back no matter what, and. I got into this because of my bands. I wanted to promote my band at the time. Band broke up, and I had nothing else to do with myself creatively, and was kind of like, I could do this. I was trying to prove something to myself, and then after a while, I really feel like I do have something to contribute on some level creatively. But
I think you're funny.
I don't.
Okay, but I mean, like, what? Like when you sit down, like, okay, so for me as an example, I know it is definitely I can use it the wrong way.
Yeah,
I know my fucking ego. I've left Tourette's. The second time I played at Tourette's Without Regrets, I walked away and I did do the thing in my head where like, all right, girls, anytime you want to come up and talk to me, you know what I mean? Like which is just born out of insecurity. But anyway, ultimately, my goal is to sure money. To be able to support myself with it, but also to have the freedom to support myself to the point where I have the freedom to communicate and create and just literally sit in a studio.
That'll come with money, and that'll come.
But it's not just supporting myself. I
spent 20 years being creative for creativity's sake,
right?
With money not being the focus, and with ultimately being an individual, being unique, and all that. And I've seen firsthand that means jack shit,
right,
to people, even when you have a quality product. All of my bands when I've played them for people who are aficionados of music, love unique music and whatever. I played them so much. They're like, "This is you." Almost every fucking time that I've played people music of mine, they're like, "This is really good," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And unfortunately, and I'm not like sitting here. I'm not somebody who toots my own horn. I'm more or less. I've made music that I'm a fan of,
right,
for myself, and other people were. But unfortunately, in a band situation, you have to also work with other people, and some of those other people may not be as driven to try and really push this to the extent of let's take this to another. Let's dive in and invest our life into it,
right?
And really, live. Let's live it. And that's a whole other set of circumstances that as I've gotten into comedy and learned that, this solely rides on me. And the whole leap into doing this now, I guess full time for a living,
right.
That wasn't a leap. That was a reluctant transition from just because I had day jobs, and the last day job I had went out of business, and I saw it coming.
The sandwich shop?
No, it's the What the Cluck. When I was working at What the Cluck in
How
in
could
Newark.
it not work?
No, it was I already knew it was going to go out of business from the beginning, but I didn't have the heart. I didn't want to be that cynical, and and so I worked there, getting paid under the table and yada yada. And actually, I just gave my buddy. I got paid at a gig at a wine bar or at a alcohol / meat / butcher shop in Millbrae.
Delicious.
And only made $14 in tips, but the owner gave us like a $75 bottle of fucking whiskey. All right, after I did my material about being in recovery,
right?
But this is me. This is again like both my addict brain and my practical brain. I'm like, if I take these gifts or accept these forms of payment because I use them as gifts for people that I know or to pay off, rides or whatever.
Okay.
But I'm like, this bottle of high-end whiskey was kind of tricky because I didn't know many people who really were whiskey aficionados.
Sure.
So I was like, well, hold on to this, and I'll, we'll see whatever. And luckily, I work a strong program, so I'm not tempted by it at all.
Okay.
But because I'm sitting there, it's over 100 proof. Whiskey, it's aged and blah blah blah. Yeah. And then my buddy, who was the co-owner of What the Cluck, I see him, taking pictures of him drinking some, fine whiskey, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I know he lost his ass with that restaurant or with the attempt at that chain or that spot. It was a food court booth or whatever.
Sure.
And I hit him up. I said, hey, man, I got a gift for you just as a thank you because I'm probably the only way who walked away making any money from that place.
Right.
Everybody else lost their ass unless they were an employee. And so I was like, I got a gift for you kind of as a thank you for all for hiring me for this job. And also because I really kind of know that I'm probably the only one who walked away saving any money from that place.
Right.
And I hooked it up. He came to a show the other night on Tuesday, and I hooked him up with it. And he was appreciative. He was like, "Oh, I bet this, it's good." I'm like, "It's the kind of shit where the owner said you got to put water in it in order to get the full flavor of all
What's
this."
wrong with people?
It's so stupid.
Non-alcoholics are the worst.
And but it was it was just so
water.
funny that he gave me alcohol or whatever for the thing, and I was thinking about selling it or something, but I thought it worked better for and it was good. It's good to give him like a thank you because again that was part of me and my working the because I'm not always that generous. I'm always such a tight ass about stuff, but so when I made that leap or when that business fell through, I just calculated the money that was coming in,
right?
And I just taken a regular paid gig helping out this one show, and I was like, I can live on this right now. Mm-hmm. It won't be much, and it was before I even got food stamps and stuff, but I got into it, and I was able to do it, and it just gave, the more that I did it, the more confidence I did it, and just in making sure that I have bookings that and sometimes bookings fall through, sometimes money's slim, whatever.
Right.
But more often than not, I've not only been able to pay my rent, pay my phone bill, but save some money. And I even have a girlfriend now who's very understandable about that all. And normally girlfriends are expensive, but she's very understanding of the budget that I live on, and she tends to be very generous. She has a really nice job, and but it's a lot of work, and she's I'm there to console her when she's having her rough days. But yeah, and it's just one of those things where I don't recommend it. I think the thing about it too is that everybody pursues this with a delusion of grandeur. Okay. I didn't. This was like one of those things where I'm glad that I had my all my dreams crushed in music and playing in the punk scene for really no aspirations other than respect.
When did you start playing
music?
Yeah,
since I was playing live music in like real joke throwaway bands since I was probably like 15 or 16, and then I didn't really play in anything that I was really confident in until probably I was 19, 20. I played guitar and bass in those bands. I learned, I taught myself the drums, and then eventually the band that got the most notoriety was this band Funeral Shock that had members of other well-established DIY bands, Spaz, Capitalist Casualties, and Agents of Satan, Dead Bodies Everywhere, or whatever the singer was from. And I was the only guy who was in a band, or nobody knew of my bands except maybe a handful of record collectors. And I was playing an instrument that I didn't play on any other band.
So that's when you were playing
drums,
okay.
Yeah.
When you didn't sing?
I did vocals on my other bands.
Okay.
And I did some background vocals on the recordings for these guys.
What years were that when you were with them?
With the drum or the punk band? That was 2002 we formed. And 2009, I quit, and I encouraged them to find another drummer, but I'm just so much a part of things that they couldn't find somebody to replace me. I'm irreplaceable.
You really are.
Yeah.
Invaluable.
Yeah.
Which is a weird fucking word. I feel like invaluable means without value, but whatever.
Yeah, it sounds like it, yeah.
So when you were because the second episode was this guy named Jake who played in punk bands for a long time. He was
Jake Martinez?
No, sir. He was in God damn it, fucking Snot Rags. Yeah, the Snot Rags. Anyway, based in San Jose, and they played punk at a bunch of like. Lucy's Mufflers or something like that. Did you ever hear of that club? No?
That might have been later too. How old is this guy?
That must have been, I think that was, I want to say before, probably around actually about the same time.
Really?
Yeah.
I might have crossed paths with them. I only knew there's one band that I knew from South Bay that were friends of ours, and I'm drawing a blank at their name. I could see the dude who was the singer of it, and I'm thinking the Runamucks, but the Runamucks were from Florida. It was might come to me later, but Rotten Fucks, and they were great.
I love punk.
Oh yeah,
names.
they were great. No, they were good friends, and also there was friends of mine that were in this band Ginch that were really cool.
Oh, so good.
And my bands played. Some of my other lesser known bands played with them and knew them through that. Funeral Shock again was like these guys' legitimacy. Kind of like it was the first band I played with, or the only band I played with at Gilman and some other clubs that my other bands didn't get to play at.
It sounds like a metal band. The name.
It is somewhat sounding, but it was definitely a throwback to early '80s hardcore. That was what they were going for, and I wasn't even really that big a punk fan. I mean, all my the punk bands that I liked were all the ones that became crossover thrash bands.
Okay.
And
what's because he said the same thing at thrash. What's the goddamn difference between punk and
punk and thrash?
Yeah,
Thrash has metal. I mean, has actually a little bit more. It's more aimed at the music than the intention. I feel punk was meant to be.
Lifestyle?
It's not supposed to be, not so much lifestyle. No, hardcore punk was always meant to. It was like too angry to really focus on dynamic changes, even though there were some and stuff. And even so, some of it punk was, I feel, more of like I'm saying hardcore punk. There's all kinds of levels of punk, but the early '80s hardcore punk, as I have come to know it and understand it, was really more driven by the anger and frustration, and it has a real like driving simplicity to it.
Right.
It's fast. It's aggressive. It's
like
angry.
Ramones type of thing?
No, not Ramones at all. Ramones was catchy and short and all that. But no, not. I would say it would be closer to like take the Sex Pistols, but play it at the rhythms, the very fast rhythms that like Motorhead started introducing.
Right.
Like Motorhead was one of the bands that was accepted by metal crowds, punk crowds, all of that kind of set the tone. But then like thrash ended up actually being more of a hybrid of metal and influenced by the punk movement, even though a lot of metalheads and punk rockers didn't get along at that time, or they wouldn't like to see each other, but they were influenced by each other. I mean, Slayer was heavily influenced by hardcore punk of the early '80s, and I wouldn't dare to say Metallica too.
That's what I was going to say. I was thinking Metallica's like thrash-ish.
No,
right?
they're total thrash. They were thrash. They later became a hard rock band. And a pop band. I've argued this. I'm like, the moment that you make decisions and you hire Bob Rock to produce your fucking album, you're not a metal band. You're not a thrash band. He was the dickhead who made the Black Album. A lot of people think Metallica went bad with the And Justice for All. I still think And Justice for All is a tolerable album.
Okay.
But the Black Album is completely crap to me because they hired a guy who made Motley Crue records, and I'm like, no. But to Metallica's credit, their goal was to make money and expand their audience, which they dumbed themselves down. They became a fucking mullet of a band to appeal to a lot of the fucking redneck trash in America.
Sure.
And it worked. It worked great.
Right.
And you know, and those guys can go and cut their hair and be all the fucking lame ass motherfuckers that they are to Kingdom Come. I still like, when they brought Robert Trujillo into the fold, it was so funny because in that I had to, when I was testing DVDs for Sony, I got paid to watch movies. That was the only way to watch some kind of monsters, to get paid to watch it. That was the most hilarious neutering of a. I'm like, wow, this is the death knell of anything that's metal in these guys. They had a therapist, and like to watch these dipshits sit around and like, I just don't.
I feel the same way about Anthony Kiedis. I feel I'm glad you're sober, Papa, but your shit is awful now.
Well, I haven't liked Red Hot Chili Peppers for a longer time than Metallica, but it was just one of those things where I'm like, it was hilarious. My favorite part of that actually was how they brought in Dave Mustaine and neutered him too by proxy by putting him on camera, making him think that it was for therapy purposes, which it was supposedly, but they ended up putting it in the movie where he basically comes clean about how hurt he was by this entire time. His whole band was born out of resentment. He named the band Megadeth so it would appear ahead of Metallica in the M section. Think about that for a second. All of his whole entire, and the fact is, in my personal opinion, old Megadeth, that was cooler than Metallica.
Sure.
Because Metallica was going for broad appeal. Right. Megadeth was like really darker. And one of my favorite albums in general, not just thrash, but and I was never a Megadeth fan, really. I liked some of their songs, but they were just sort of like, I just never really cared about Dave Mustaine that much. But one of my favorite albums of all time, of all genres, is Rust in Peace, which is his album after he got sober. Okay. And he, like him with that album, like from start to finish, is a great album. Like every song works, and it works in that order. And it's one of those best, like. And I still listen to it to this day, and it's like, and again, not a Megadeth fan, but I love Rust in Peace, and it's just one of those, it's hard to explain, and he wrote some really good songs on there, but he was always butthurt by the fact that he's always going to be the guy that Metallica kicked out, and it's funny, but to think of it from his point of view, he's going to be listening to the radio, and Metallica songs are on like every other fucking hour, and he's always going to hear the band that kicked him out, and he starts crying.
Oh, really?
He cries in that fucking movie. It's so awesome.
God damn it.
And then what was so awesome is they used the footage. Used the footage, and I'm sure they paid him too. They paid him because he's got hurt feelings on film. So I was listening to the commentary on that shit with the director, and they were talking about how the whole shady circumstances of them using that footage, and Dave Mustaine, even though he cashed the check, he still shit talked the movie in public, and he said, it should be called Some Kind of Bullshit. I took that and I was trying to find the name of a title for one of the songs I was writing in Funeral Shock at the time, and Some Kind of Bullshit was the perfect title for it because it was a song about friends who backstab you.
Now, you at the same time, you just said that you were a drummer in that band. So you wrote even though you were. I
wrote songs in every band I was in. Yeah.
Okay.
Some bands. But the funny thing was I never had, with the exception of like early on, some idea like some of like my own. They weren't really bands. They were just like my own one man songwriting things I was doing.
Sure.
But when I started being in bands, even my very first band that had a drummer, Snowy Plover. My very first band was called Snot Locker, actually, with me and my friend. But we didn't have a drummer. We had a keyboard, a Casio keyboard. It was a joke band.
Nice.
And that's where I got my first alter ego name, Trouthead. I
don't like that name.
No, it's perfect, man. It's a great name. Everybody still called me Trouthead. I got a necklace.
I'm gonna stab you in the throat.
And so there's still people that when they run into me from that time, they call me Trouty. And but the first band that I actually had that I had like self-respect in, whatever, was called Snowy Plover, and that was still a name that my friend Dennis, one of my oldest friends, him and my friend Keith, they came up with a noise outfit, and they made a really cool logo. And when me and Dennis were throwing that, they were just doing a noise project with that. And it was too cool a name. It's the name of a bird that's from our area that was endangered at one point.
Oh.
But they made this cool fucking logo for it. And I was like, dude, that's too cool a logo to not use for something better than that. And me and Dennis were, he learned to play drums to my guitar playing, and we were very into the Melvins and Sleep and other band. We got into other bands too, a lot of experimental bands and stuff. And when we were coming together with these songs, and we were trying to think of a name of the band, I'm like, hey, why don't we just invite Keith to join the band and have him be a noise section to the songs, and we'll call it Snowy Plover. And sure enough, that worked. And
noise section. What do you mean noise section?
Like he was a noisician. Like his instrument was noise. Like to come up with creative like samples and mix. Like,
I like that.
He was great at it, and very creative guy. And what was funny though is that that both was a blessing and a curse, because these guys were all very scatterbrained, insecure. Like it's a long story, but the band sounded. I love the sound that we created. Unfortunately, the personalities that we were just, we're all just scatterbrained whatnots. And what I didn't realize is I'm the one who's like enabling a lot of it to happen, to the band to kind of be, and they're more in their heads about it.
Right.
But it still wasn't my idea. It was their idea that I just breathed life into.
Right.
And so years went by, and all these bands that I was in, when I would join, there would be an idea for a band. Somebody would invite me into a band or whatever, and it was still like, and I would contribute. I'd be a heavy contributor. I was like a hired gun, and always like did more than my fair share of.
Because you can play a bunch of things.
I can write to the style of whatever the songs were, all that shit. But I never had a band truly that was my own.
Right.
And then it wasn't until, and I had kind of a band that was an idea, but it was making fun of music, called I Think There's Some Damage. It was a one-man band, bass and drums. Nice. Yeah, it was fun. It was, and it turned into like a mock cover band. But that's where my band evolved from, because one of the first live drummers I used was my friend Eric. And then years later, when I came up with an idea, I wrote all these songs for this one band I joined with my friend Dennis and his wife later, called the Bug Pedals, and I wrote a bunch of songs for them. And they only ended up using one when I was in the band, and that was the Mean song. And
what's that about?
It's just a mean song. It's hard to explain, but that's where Mean Dave came from.
Ah.
And then what ended up happening was I wrote all these songs that then, and I quit the Bug Pedals later on, and I'm like, I have all these songs, and I really like these songs. I'm like, I should just start a band with these songs. Right. And I was trying to think of a drummer who could like fit in with a lot of, it was creative, and just do it as a duo, a guitar and drums, since that was like kind of a thing at the time. And and my buddy Eric, I thought of him, and he's a black dude. He raps and stuff, so he was like perfect also in like the kind of, because I'm Hispanic, metalhead, and technically from a white neighborhood background, but Eric's from the same area, and he's a black dude. So
Fremont, Newark.
Yeah, okay. We both grew up in Newark. We have a similar kind of like we're tokenish, but we're not.
Right.
And we're different people. We're even different from each other, but we have a similar sensibility in just our tastes of our we have an affinity for things that our tastes, we have strong opinions and beliefs in our tastes. Okay. We don't even have the same tastes all the time, me and Eric.
Right.
But we respect each other's opinion, and so when I hit him up about doing it, he was doing a rap project not too long before that, but he wasn't doing much with it. And I hit him up because I was like, hey man, I got this idea for a band, and I need a drummer, and I can't think of a drummer who quite would fit in it better than you. What do you think? And he goes, yeah man, let's do it. And that was in 2007. And we hit the ground running, and I told him, like, there's going to be this thread of stand-up comedy to it and all that. And we came up with I came up with the alter egos, Mean Dave and Crazy Eric. It was based on a movie that Lee Van Cleef was in called Mean Frank and Crazy Tony. And it just fit us. And he was my straight man. I was, I do a lot of talking, obviously, as you can hear on the fucking podcast. So yeah. I'm talking out my ass a lot between songs and shit. Yeah, you got some buzzing, man.
Sorry.
And, is that?
God!
Is that just the headphones? Or,
I'm fine.
So it ended up working, and we had that band from 2007 till 2011. He quit, and he quit because he did not like comedians after I transitioned into comedy.
Where does that go?
What do you mean?
The desire? Do you still write?
No. I have ideas. I could. Here's the thing. I'm old now. I'm 41, going to be 42. And I don't say like old, like
that's
that's
super old.
It's old. And I have ideas. I don't have means. I can't drive. I don't have excuse me. The things that I've come to learn. If I have the means to do something, I can easily play and whip up something.
Right.
But I don't think I have. It's like I said, I've had fun making some movies. I've had fun doing a lot of, the thing about it, you really need means. You take away driving, and not to say like, oh, that's the whole reason, but I'm not really as I've made stuff. I've learned how how much work it takes to really involve people. You need people and planets aligning to kind of make projects kind of work and stuff, and in doing all of that, I really am comfortable after having pursued and making stand-up comedy work for myself, primarily myself. There's to try and a situation would have to present itself where I can easily step into a studio or into some place with somebody who I can jam with, and that's not going to happen because I'm not going to put a lot of energy into making stuff again. That because I've had my heart broken too many times.
Sure,
it's just like in relationships in general. Like and it's past the. I've made a lot of things happen through sheer force of will.
Right. And
after especially with my lifestyle changing, being in recovery and all that. I have a lot more of like an approach to life of where, if my higher power wants me to be making music, shit will present itself to me, and it may again.
But what I mean is writing.
Yeah.
Like so, as an example.
Yeah.
This, even though I was a co-host on a podcast, and I'm a musician primarily kind of. This is like over the last month, I haven't really been working on the album. I think it's been like almost a month since I had a recording day. I haven't, you know what I mean? Like I'm still working on it, but I had to kind of focus my energy this way. And this is a creative output that feels really nice to me. It feels good. But this is, like I was saying, it's the creative energy is going one place. So do you feel like your creative energy to create music has kind of funneled its way into a more effective and what's the word I'm looking for? Rewarding sense.
No, not in any way. No, that was a very wonderful description that you made, and I was looking forward to you hearing the answer.
I'll wait for your 20-minute answer, cocksucker.
No, as far as music, I look at it. There's comedy is nowhere. It's a completely different instrument.
Of course.
I do not get the same. Music was one of those like. There were times I had. There's nothing that compares to losing myself in some very awesome sounds and moments. Performing music with my friends, live on stage, and comedy is a completely different beast where it's. I mean, it's adversarial and
community
and
oriented
connection. With people that I don't know. Some I do, but it is a completely different animal. And I don't. The difference being that I felt like I probably should have been doing comedy. If I had started comedy and found this when I was younger, I think it would have probably changed my life in a way that I could have, because I did all these creative things. I just didn't have an avenue of like putting it out there for more people to see and witness. And now that I do comedy now, I'm like, well, if I would have found this earlier, maybe it would have given a little more exposure to some of these other things that I would have had, and I would have had the youthful energy to do.
Right.
But I also am a big believer. I adopt my, my recovery program and the horse shit that we say to ourselves. I really do, believe that I am where I'm supposed to be.
Of course.
And the things that have happened, I don't say so much that they happen for a reason, but that the whatever is in my future, even in my 40s. I'm also one of these things where I oddly enough, as much as I love performing and I want to get stuff out there and get it paid attention to and all that kind of thing. I'm also I really value anonymity in the level of like anonymity in the sense that, I know that there's a vast ocean of apathy for anything. Doesn't matter how, that's why nothing cracks me up more than somebody who really is known or whatever, and people thinking that they're so famous that they can't leave. Hannibal Buress just went to Copyright, the Copyright comedy show, the Copyright Cocktail Lounge in San Francisco. They do a show there on Wednesdays.
I've never heard of it.
It's a play. It's across the street from where Brainwash used to be.
Okay.
And they do comedy shows there now on Wednesdays and Fridays. I think maybe Saturdays too. But and I perform there. It's a great room, and it's run by different producers, different nights. But I did the Wednesday show there, and then I guess last Wednesday Hannibal showed up and did a set there. I'm like, yeah, because I've seen Hannibal on the street. I've been outside Cobb's before going to see JB Smoove, and he rolled in with a guy. He just looks like another dude.
Right.
And it's not. He's been seen on stuff. Yeah, he went viral with the Bill Cosby. Nobody gives a fuck these days. Nobody is as famous. There are people that, if you saw even Dave Chappelle, but if you saw Adam Sandler on the street, or if you saw I bet Ryan Reynolds could still go to the fucking store. Even though he's fucking Deadpool or whatever. Ben Affleck might be a little tougher. People might give you a little more shit.
So you're saying you would prefer to keep the anonymity of a Hannibal Buress?
Not even that. It's not even keep. I don't have that. People don't have those choices. Nobody. I want to say like Bill Burr is one of my favorite comics today, and he's somebody who is well known in the comedy world. He's been in he's dabbled in movies and TV and stuff. He can still go to the store, and he's probably a millionaire. He's probably has money. He saved his money. That's not. To me, that's what's attractive about comedy or pursuing. I'm a big fan of character actors. I'm a big fan of all these things. But the fact is, they all didn't go into this. Same thing with my favorite band, the Melvins. Nobody sets out to be a cult favorite. Right. Okay, people set out to do things to get to do their very best and to reach as many people as they possibly can. But they obviously, in their creative choices or whatever, their choices and roles and all that stuff, they make decisions. And I look at it from the standpoint of I already know my talent limitations. I'm not. There's plenty of people out there that are way fucking better at me at anything that I choose to do.
Right.
If I do something that ever reached a point where it got so much, that it went viral or whatever, guess what? Now I'm going to be a fucking joke because I'm not I don't. It's because you're gonna get then you got to deal with fucking. You get to. See YouTube comments. So I'm just looking at the plus side.
Okay, but let me pause you because you talked about having the money to do what you wanted to do. Yeah. The autonomy is what's for me.
I can live on
Bill Burr, as an example, can make whatever the fuck he wants for the most part. But even let's say Adam Sandler. He continues to pump out kind of. I haven't even seen him.
He makes what he wants.
He makes what he fucking wants. He's got the money and the freedom, the production, the Netflix, the connections, the whatever.
But I'm sure there's stuff that he still feels. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think anybody that the Melvins are my heroes as far as making exactly what they want and really as far as creative take risk takers and all that, they truly execute a level of vision and pump, and they work their fucking asses off.
Okay.
And they're the type of creative beasts that even if I don't identify something that they or identify with something that they make right away, I hold on to it because I know that I'll listen to it later with fresh ears, and I'll really or if I see it live. They've made me fans of songs I fucking did not like right away.
Really?
And that's how how I felt when I first heard them. And I feel the same way about certain artists. Quentin Tarantino never was my favorite director when I first saw Reservoir Dogs or even Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
But I fell in love with his movies after Jackie Brown because I really felt like here was a guy who everybody hyped. And I like Pulp Fiction. Whatever. Sure. It made me went and go back and watch Reservoir Dogs with different eyes. Right. But then when I saw Jackie Brown, I fucking love Jackie Brown.
Why?
Because they kill Smokey in the first half hour of that fucking movie when I hated Chris Tucker. That right away just warmed my fucking heart. I hated Friday. I hate that fucking movie. I was a pothead, and I would be insulted by that movie. I fucking hate Ice Cube and F. Gary Gray for making that piece of shit.
F. Gary Gray.
That's the guy who made it.
Okay.
And I was, because everybody was trying to. My cousin was showing me like, oh, you gotta check out Friday. I'm like, I don't want to check out Friday. I've already seen it. It sucks.
Right.
Everyone's like, it's fucking hilarious. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just like hanging out at my buddy Mike's house, and Mike's not a funny guy, and that's like, why would I want to watch a movie about that feels like that only set in the hood or the seemingly hood or whatever? And so, and it's got it whatever. So, and Chris Tucker was the most. I don't like Chris Tucker.
Okay,
and he's not a good actor.
He's doing. I think he's doing stand-up.
Oh, he's been a
shows
stand-up.
now.
That's how he got into all that shit. He was a stand-up. I'm sure I don't like his stand-up either. Never watched it.
Right.
And he ended up. But here he was in this Tarantino movie, and that was the one casting choice because I was like, oh, cool, Michael Keaton's in it. Like other actors that like weren't obvious choices. Never heard of Robert Forster until that movie. And never even knew of Pam Grier. And but I go see this movie, and the reason why I loved it was, first off, again, here is Smokey, and the audience is that like fucking eating the shit. It was a packed audience. I saw it in Dublin, and everybody's there. Can't wait to see Smokey in this shit. And they kill him 30 minutes into that fucking movie.
Right.
And I remember thinking, like, this ain't Pulp Fiction. He ain't coming back. It
Right.
ain't like John Travolta getting killed in Pulp Fiction.
Right.
He's dead for the rest of the movie.
Right.
That's exactly what happened. And
Right.
so that sold me right away. And he was good in the movie. I do think he played, because he was an actor in the movie. As Tarantino said, he treats his stars like actors and his actors like stars. And that's how he came. He didn't have an entourage on the set and all that shit. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot of, I went through my whole movie nerd phase and studied a lot of this shit. And the thing I liked about that movie is exactly, when I read later, what Tarantino put into it is exactly what I got out of it. It's a hangout movie. It's his Dazed and Confused. Even though it's in the form of a Elmore Leonard adaptation, he made a movie that you're hanging out with these characters throughout the whole movie, and that's what I got out of it. You're hanging out with De Niro as Lewis, smoking bong loads and drinking screwdrivers with Ordell and all that shit. That's exactly what Tarantino said. And I'm like, that movie made me want to have screwdrivers. It really did. And I'm like, that to me is very effective filmmaking. Mm-hmm. And especially of material that I really was like, and it's hilarious. That movie's hilarious. People have enjoyed that movie more over time. But the thing I also liked about it was that he made an unpopular choice in that he made a book adaptation using older actors who were not A-list actors, making what essentially was a movie aimed specifically for black audiences at a time when white audiences were jerking off to his movies. Right. And they didn't understand, they didn't get it right away. And most people kind of still don't. I remember one of my favorite reviews was when I just started working in video game testing, and one of my favorite reviews of that movie was this guy, he's a friend of mine, Ben Wizyansky, who was fucking hilarious when he would be just talking out his ass testing a video game. And he's like, oh yeah, you see that Jackie Brown? Yeah, man. I'd love to sit in a theater and watch 30 minutes of looking at Pam Grier to music just driving a car or something like the way his review of it was fucking perfect. Right. But it was because he was the epitome of why people didn't enjoy that movie. Whereas the thing was, when I was watching it, I'm like, I don't get this right away. I'm from the same fucking, white ass neighborhoods and whatever. But I was watching a different type of movie, and it wasn't aimed at my. But what sold me on it was them killing Smokey. It was killing Chris Tucker. So I was like, they could do no wrong from the rest of the movie, and it was. I thought it was cool because it celebrated. It was a movie that dealt with age, that dealt with. It had a lot of the same kind of. There was themes of violence and whatnot, but it was funny to me, and it was about getting old. Okay. And he made that movie at the prime of his career. Right. And he's continued to, really. I don't think people, as much as he gets enough credit and all that kind of shit, but. Django Unchained was a fucking amazing movie. That's a movie that he made a black superhero in the West.
The end was a little.
You can say whatever. The fact is, you are never gonna see a movie. It's because, dude, it's a fun movie.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie.
He made a movie where you're never gonna see a black lead whipping a white slave master in slow motion in another movie again. All right, you'll be lucky if you do, especially after Trump times and shit. Right. And it was just one of those things where just seeing that movie was like, it was. I remember it was when Obama was in office. I'm seeing some shit I never thought I would ever see in my lifetime. Sure. Granted, it was done more for publicity's sake, for the sake of the world. But it was still one of those things where I was just like, it was nice to live in a time where that was the case before we have this really big, confused reactionary time we live in right now.
Okay.
So,
do you feel like? So, I have a couple of things I want to talk about.
Yes, I do.
Fuck it. So let's dig apart that a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you really think that in this Trump time or whatever, we couldn't be making things that are being as an example, Django Unchained?
Oh, I think stuff can be made and be the trouble being now. Tarantino again made that. That's a mainstream movie,
right? And I get what you're saying. Like,
he made a mainstream movie that was pretty
right.
punk rock in its,
Sure.
in everything that he did with it.
Right.
We're also living in a time where there are no real independent movies. That shit he's part of what killed independent movies because of the popularity of Pulp Fiction.
Okay.
Movie studios did not want to see that. What we have now is like the illusion of independent movies through small companies that are owned by parent companies. And they're just trying to spend less money and trying to, make that hit and whatever. Because even movies that make money, studios are not interested in that. They're interested in only blockbusters. That's why the Marvel movies are pretty dangerous, in the sense that they are blockbuster. I hate to say I love the Marvel movies because I grew up watching comic book movies, but I really do fear for a lot of film's future because it's not only that, but we have the means to make independent movies completely like with no budget movies. With if you had something really to say and had talent behind it, you could make a good independent movie and upload it to YouTube. And if it were worth anything, it would go viral. People don't use those tools. Why? Because people want just attention, all the attention for as quick as they can get it. And they want everything to go viral. They want everything to. There's a cheapness to so much right now that everything's a soundbite, and everybody kind of plays into that this meme 30-second video culture, and it's like that nobody has the patience to really nor a sense of vision. So I really feel like that there's people that probably are also making some quality work that unfortunately what does it require? It requires an audience that's patient, intelligent, and whatever, and I don't know. So I just look at it like there's that there may still be a groundbreaking independent no budget movie in the future that could, and guess what, if somebody were to do that, guess what, you're gonna have the very next day you're gonna have a million copycats, which would be a good thing if somebody made a quality 90 to 2 hour minute film on a no budget and uploaded it and it went viral and people were like, check out this movie, this is an amazing movie.
I feel like copycats, like as an example, me doing this podcast, I listen to a lot of,
it's a medium.
I listen to a lot of Opie and Anthony and Joe Rogan, and just kind of that older, just long form conversation, fuck structure, go.
Yeah.
And so in a way I get that. What I feel like about, and I hate saying this, especially the way I'm going to say it. Well, I don't hate saying it, but I hate the way I'm going to say it. But for a lack of a better, at the risk of sounding like a fucking teenager, the reason why I feel like the Marvel movie stuff is so kind of creepy is that it's no longer like, what was that stuff when Iron Man the first one was made, and then the second one is like, okay, I'm fucking Howard, what is his name, the black actor,
what's his name?
Terrence Howard. Okay, I want to make more money. Okay, we'll just replace you right away. Now, obviously, everyone's been replaceable forever, but the machine was bigger. The director, fucking even goddamn...
That dude has a history of being kind of a dick.
He does?
Yeah.
Okay. But you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, everybody is replaceable because the machine, it's already rolling. It doesn't matter, with James Gunn or whoever. Like, let's kill anybody because the machine, the movie is more powerful and more important than the director, than the writer, than anybody who gives a fuck about it.
Yeah.
It's no longer about that. It's about pumping this out.
It's no different than but also, what's her name? She couldn't do... couldn't do Batman, the Dark Knight, the chick, what's her name? Tom Cruise's wife.
Oh.
What's her fucking name? I always forget
Katie,
her name. Katie Holmes.
Holmes.
She was in the first one. She was great in the first one, too. She should have been in the second one, but she couldn't do it. I think she was preggers or whatever the fuck.
Oh, really? Okay.
Schedules couldn't make. And so they got Maggie Gyllenhaal, who I thought was perfect for it because they kill her in that one.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was happier to see her die than I'd feel sadder if Katie Holmes died. But then again, that would have worked in there. And then the fact is also, Heath Ledger died, so they couldn't have.
Right.
And I think they. As much as they said they didn't bring the Joker into the third one. Like, the Joker was supposed to have in Dark Knight Rises.
I bet.
But out of respect, they didn't. I'm like, no! It would have been respectful to have something.
Right. It was about the bad press.
The presence. Well,
the bad press
dead.
is the reason why they didn't.
Whatever. I'm just like, it would have shown more respect, I think, in homage.
Although
to have some echo of his character.
Although Nolan, I could trust that he would have the power enough at that point after Dark Knight, especially, to make that executive decision and say no.
He said he made the decision not to have it in there out of respect for Heath Ledger, and I'm like, I don't know, but he's also whatever. He's not really even a comic book guy. But he made great those were great movies, and I'm just saying, like, the Machine's always been bigger than anybody.
Legit.
I don't fault them for any of that. The James Gunn shit, obviously, I thought that was, but also I'm not surprised, and they'll get somebody else.
Sure.
And there's
and
not,
Disney can handle the bad.
And I looked at it this way, like, hey, DC, if you're fucking smart, hire James Gunn. That'll actually up your cool cred from your shit movies.
Right.
And you got a talented guy that could then revamp something, because they brought what's his name, the Joss Whedon. He came in to punch up the Justice League script. When he's got a credit on the writing for that, and he was the guy who they let go after Avengers 2. So I mean, it's all incestual. And it's all, Hollywood's a disgusting business, so it's not.
Sure.
It's never hasn't been. That's why all the Me Too shit cracks me up, because I'm like, yeah, that's great. You want to bring an HR department into Hollywood? Good fucking luck, man, because that is that is really like trying to like tidy up a fucking manure farm, and that's understandable. And it's completely seemingly well intentioned, but it's like as you'll discover, it's like everything in that there's a long history of shadiness.
Right. What creeps me out more about that stuff is that it's more, we're going to posture at the Oscars or at the Emmys,
that's what they always
and
do.
we're going to show
actors.
This, right?
They're fucking actors.
And we're gonna have somebody stand up and make this speech, but it's like, wait a second, you're saying time's up. You're the guys. Like, you're trying to send this message out to us in the public, but not in a way like, hey, we know we fucked up. It's in a, you know more. Stand up to the. It's like, hang on, the motherfuckers are in the room. like no, you're the guy.
And that's what what's her name, Argento, the Asia Argento was calling it out to their faces.
Yeah.
But I also, that's the daughter of Dario Argento. I know her dad's work. I love his work. And
he's a violent director, right?
He's a horror director, not so much violence, but Italian horror film. Okay. He was more into like colorful films, not so much like they were violent. I mean, there's violence, but he was more into like artful horror films,
like that Salo.
Suspiria is what he made.
Suspiria,
he made Suspiria and some other well-known ones, but and she's made some very tough films, like good and what she's in that realm of avant-garde filmmaking. Okay, but she's a twisted bitch, like she, and not to say
with
like
the 17-year-old.
I like her. That's shit.
Hot.
That shit's not
fucking hot.
Not only that, I believe her in that. I believe because I looked at that. I'm like, I've never heard of that fucking douchebag.
No, for sure.
And he does seem like the type of dude. Like if you read her account of everything, like I do believe that there was some funky shit going on there. But I think he's trying to exploit her. I think
he is trying to exploit her, and I think she definitely fucked a 17-year-old,
and she definitely sent pictures of her topless to a dude with a girlfriend, a comedian with a girlfriend in England. It's girl. It's Hollywood.
I love a good girl.
It's Hollywood.
I really do.
And there's a difference between a powerful dude who does take advantage and occasionally rapes motherfuckers, even and leverages himself in a way where. Right. But the fact is that there's complicity for everyone that he may have raped. There's definitely been a line of bitches that probably were complicit in exploiting themselves.
Right, and both things can be true. They can be mutually true. So, like as an example,
Are those
just
peanut
because,
butter cookies?
Yeah, have
Holy
some.
shit! I just saw those.
Go get some.
I will in a second.
I just want to stare at them a little bit from across the room.
I just realized
they're
have
teasing
those.
you.
Oh my god!
But both things can be true.
Yeah.
Asia Argento fucked a 17-year-old intentionally.
Yeah,
that can be true, but that does not negate the fact that Harvey Weinstein was a rapist piece of shit.
It turns into this he said, she said, and all.
Well, you're on that side, I'm on this side.
Yeah, and
everybody
it's like there's, I mean, and we're seeing people, that behavior play out locally in my comedy scene. There's been a lot of heavy accusations thrown around with some people that have some checkered past in their in terms of their relationships and whatnot, and I'm friends with these comics,
right?
And I've had to make some judgment calls as to working with who I work with, and also being aware of that it's I definitely here's part of this is so weird. This is one of the things that I really am more resentful about this than anything else.
Okay.
Ever since I was a kid and growing up and being the nice guy, I was labeled the nice guy when I was in high school and whatnot. Let me just say this,
which means you did not have sex. That's what.
Yeah. Not only that, but every woman that I wanted to have sex with was having sex with a piece of shit male that was treating her like shit. That was every bit of everything that this Me Too movement likes to appear to be against. It fed male behavior. It fed the alpha rapist male behavior. And I say rapist male behavior because it's a culture of it's a rape culture where you have people that I remember going to Florida after hearing the 2020 story, or it was on the news 2020, that show about the epidemic of roofies in places, and women are getting drugged against their will and had sex with. I went to a party in Florida the month I was staying there. I went to a party in the swamp or whatever, and somebody had roofies. These chicks were all, I want roofies. All of these chicks were screaming, lining up for roofies.
Right.
And it was one of those things where I'm just as far as a culture shock.
Right.
Where I'm like, I don't. There's a culture of I want to say. So when I see all this stuff now, I'm like, this is good, but I'm like, I wish this shit was around when it was really bothering me when I was a kid and when I was growing up and a teenager and whatnot, because I end up becoming more. There's what we called in the QA field when I worked in video games. There's a lot of this backwards compatibility now that the parameters of date rape have been widened, where now it's like if you. Say, like, if you were inebriated and you were with a woman, you both were drinking, and say you both decide to go back to one of your places and you have sex with her, and she wakes up late in the morning and regrets the sex. Now that's been in that scope of rape,
right? Which is
or if there's regrettable behavior,
right? So there's a couple of things. First things first, I want to get to the public shaming thing because. It's really so. Let's first go to the alpha. I think you know this. I think every person who's a thoughtful person who looks at, especially someone who's like me, where anytime a large group of people believe something and marches to one beat, I'm like, I immediately try to look for holes in it, and I'm kind of contrarian.
I hate aggressive male behavior in general. This is a general feeling of mine. What I'm finding what's funny about this movement, or not just the I don't want to say the movement itself, but the way women are behaving in a certain way. They're taking on a lot of qualities in response to this stuff that remind me of males.
Ta-da.
Of the way men kind of where and I don't. So, I stay quiet about it, and I grew up with nothing but sisters who bullied me.
Right.
So I'm a very much a
and I know
willful beta male.
And I know some females who have molested people. By the way.
Oh yeah.
So
that happens too. But the numbers obviously are in the males.
Oh no, for sure.
Yeah.
but let me take a look at that too.
I'll root for the first woman that drags a man into a bush.
No, yeah. Oh, don't rape me.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, the reason why I want to make a distinction between alpha male and aggressive date rapey male. And
Yeah,
here's why. Here's
you
why.
can.
A legit ass alpha male is secure enough to get the female. An insecure guy who's around alphas or who can see, that's the guy who drugs people.
But I've been around so many goddamn. I swear to God, man, I have yet to be around, your men's men, which I've been around. I've been cool with them and all that shit.
Sure.
But where it's funny to be. I would say I've rarely been around men that I would say that are truly respectful in a sense that that didn't turn into Donald Trump on that bus.
Okay.
At some point, where it doesn't matter, it's just one of those things. And then not only that, but then of course as I get older and losing all faith in all of humanity, male or female, it's one of those things where. Because I would have been one of these people that would have been totally on fucking board with everything that women are standing up for today, and I'm glad it's happening.
Sure.
I'd rather it happen to bring light to keep creeps on notice, and I hope it stays that way.
Sure.
Just so that so there are benefits to it, but the fact being too that I can't help. But feel like a lot of it's being exploited, namely by social media, because social media benefits from this in so many fucking ways, because it keeps things viral. Right. The hashtag culture,
click.
It keeps. They want people in this way, and not only that, you can. There's so much information you can glean from the way that people interact
and
aggressively online.
Oh, good! I get to feel like I'm standing for something. Oh, good! I feel a part of something.
It's not only that, you're just creating a paper trail of all your horse shit. Right. And so there's a lot of that factor, but everything that I've seen from when I was in from college and whatnot, and women I've found that women, as much as they like to act, there's this real wanting your cake and eating it too when it comes to dealing with men,
right? And
there's no that I feel like some of it breeds a level of unaccountability for behavior that it absolves this. That's why there's the one of the hashtags or one of the sayings was "believe all women." I'm like, oh Jesus Christ! Well, again, I listen to all women, but am I going to believe all women?
So I was on Facebook.
Women are better manipulators. They've always been the better manipulators. There's a reason why they have a pussy. Saying of
that's what it is.
Well, the horseshit saying of behind every strong man is a powerful woman. It's like because they're manipulating the motherfuckers because a man is nothing more than a fucking ape.
Right.
All right. And women are the smarter ones. They're the ones that can handle. They have a stronger threshold for pain.
Yeah.
I believe that they're smarter. This is me. As much as they aren't the ones getting the credit for fucking inventing. They didn't invent a bomb. All right. No. And it's one of those things where when I say smarter, I mean just more or less I believe that it is important to stay in touch with emotions.
Yeah, emotionally intelligent. For sure.
And that's because in intuition and whatnot, a lot of times, one of the reasons why I think my girlfriend and I get along so well right now is she's somebody who is I don't know, it's just something about her that I haven't clicked with a woman like this in a long time, and just being able to exist. And it's uncomfortable sometimes where it's I'm almost maybe this isn't the right relation. I'm like, no, this is that's my fucking addict brain talking me out of, this is something that is good for me. I've always been attracted to women that were never good for me. And it was exciting. Yeah, it was that, and the other, but it was more addicted to the emotional roller coaster and the eventual, I was addicted to pain. So when I look at a lot of this stuff that's playing out in the gender politics between men and women, the whole movement really also is addressing, it's an overcompensation for the power, the patriarchy, all that kind of shit.
Sure.
And I think it would just be a little, like Dave Chappelle's talked about it. It would be more effective if they did, if they were a little bit more understandable in the you have male allies and nobody's perfect. Nobody.
And not just that, what the fix to all of it is, and I'm trying to keep it in in some sort of a box. I want to unpack a lot of this stuff, But
we're all over the fucking map with this fucking podcast. So
but
if you're listening to this by now, man, you've written us off.
Right.
A long time ago.
For some reason, people really like the podcast. I don't know what's wrong with it.
I don't know either.
But here's the thing. The fix is honesty. Mm-hmm. Do you understand the emotion, as an example, of why those women wanted to be roofied?
No, I don't, and that's why again. I took those. I tried roofies myself. They knock you the fuck out. You lose. It is
inhibitions, don't you?
It is.
You lose inhibitions.
Not even inhibition. I don't know what happened.
You lose responsibility or accountability.
I passed out in the back seat of my friend's car, and apparently I behaved a certain way that I don't remember.
Right.
And then I tried it another time and just passed out on my couch.
Right.
And because I was like, I wanted to take it and see if I could remember as an experiment. I was an experimental drug addict.
Right.
And yeah, after it was such a scary experience that like just to lose. I mean, it's like being blackout drunk and then hearing about your behavior being blackout drunk,
right?
Only without the hangover.
Right. Now, I'm not saying this is definitely. I mean, it's possibly there was social pressure in there. Oh, since she's doing it and she's the hot fuckable one, I'm going to do it.
There was there was
right.
Pressure.
No, I know
they were lying.
No, I mean, I think there was subconscious, possibly between the females, competition and this and sure.
It's Florida too, man. They ain't got shit down there.
But as an example, so here's where honesty might come in there. Honesty might say
Florida's
if a female,
too,
by the way, if a female is honest with herself, most of the women that I've talked to, the reason why they like jerks is not because they hate themselves.
No, they're attracted to confidence.
Yes.
You've always been attracted. No, and that's what pisses me off. I'm like, no, find an unconfident dipshit sometime.
But they do. But that pussy. But the pussy dictates what you're into.
Let's not talk about it like the pussy. That's another one. That's one of those things. I might do that.
No, but my dick is the same way. You're telling me your dick is not the same way. I may be mentally. Let me put it in a different way. Yeah, exactly. Let me put it in a different way. I know intentionally.
My dick is finicky, man.
Right now, I'm supposed to be into big asses, but I just not. Mm-hmm. I'm just not.
Well, I am.
Right.
Way into big asses.
There you go. I've
been watching way too much step family incest porn too, man. That's
really?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. I talked about incest porn a couple of episodes ago.
It's just a little. I mean, it hits a little too close to home. I've had. I got stepsisters that were attractive at one point.
Did you have sex with them?
No. Hell no.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was no.
All right.
I think it was
maybe just a little.
Just
sniff a panty though.
No,
sniffing panties.
No. You gotta understand something. They were my stepsisters. I love them to pieces, mind you. And
right.
They were mean. Like, and not one, the younger one, not so much, but the oldest one fucking scared the shit out of me, man. I get blamed for shit she did, so I was resentful, even though I might have found her attractive. I remember when I was in junior high, my buddy Chris was like, "Hey, man, your stepsisters are kind of hot." I'm like, "Yeah, so what?" And and he's like, "Well, you're not really related to him. Why don't you?" I'm like, "If you like him so much, why don't you bang him?" All right, like whatever. And this is like just junior high talk,
right?
And it's just whatever. And but it was one of those things where it was just because I was so uncomfortable around women in general, and then to add this on top of that, right. When you're going through puberty and just you'll bang anything,
but
or the thought of banging anything will get you horny.
But didn't the shame?
I fucked a cupboard once. All right, that's what I'm saying. It's just not. It's you're a fucking dog. You're a goddamn dog trying to hump anything. And so that's why it's like it was so it's like I could be like all it would have taken was just like a moment of weakness, and granted I probably would have let a dude blow me if I was at that point in time.
Oh, you will. I've done it. I've done it a couple of times.
It's not. It doesn't. It's just too uncomfortable a conversation afterwards. That's all I feel. And that's because I've had awkward sex enough with women where it's like I just don't need that level of shit with the dude. Cause
well, what's nice is that the guys don't want a conversation. I would go over to their house. They would found them on Craigslist.
I'd be the one that wants the conversation.
They suck me off a little bit, and then okay, ta-ta. Top of the morning. I have no exchange of name.
Sex in general. That's why I tell my joke about. It's funny because I'm actually grateful to reach an age where I am after the last relationship I had before this one. I was incredibly physically attracted to her, and she pretty much ripped my heart out through my asshole, and I got really soured on. Oh, actually, and then I had another relationship that was physical about a year later that thought things were going well, and she just broke it off.
Right,
and I got really soured on just sex in general. And then here I am in this relationship that I'm in where it's not rooted in physical. It's like we're affectionate and physical, but we're not. It really is like I have a friend in my girlfriend,
right.
And that's something I've never had before. I've tried and whatever, but there's always been it was more physical than anything else. And I talked to her about it when we first started dating. I said I don't want to have because I think she thought that she had to like come on to me strong or something. Because I do like a woman that comes on to me, but I felt that like this was a relationship that I wanted to take really slow, and I have, and it's been the best thing for me. And for her, I feel this in that we have a very affectionate, loving relationship. That we enjoy spending time with each other, we enjoy seeing each other, and I don't fear it. Whereas I used to fear, even in relationships with women that I was, just all fucking, gaga over or couldn't
right.
wait. It triggers a part in my brain that's just like she appeals to more of a part of my brain that I've never really explored in a relationship, which is just again just spending comfortable quality time with somebody,
right.
as opposed to just somebody who just gives you boners all the goddamn time. She gives me boners, don't get me wrong, but
sure.
but there's different levels to the relationship,
right?
And because I've so many of my relationships have just been toxic,
right? But it sounds like you're in the place where you're allowing it to happen.
Yeah, I'm older, and I'm when I say sexually reluctant, I'm just more like I'm not. It's like when I see women that are and I've always been this way, where it's just like even when I was younger, I'm just like if somebody just seemed like too attractive, they're unattainable. Even when a girl was like, I remember one chick in college. My roommate had a crush on her. She was this chick that worked in the grounds at UC Santa Cruz, and he was checking her out. I'm like, oh, yeah, she's hot, whatever. And turned out she was interested in me. I didn't believe her. Right. I thought she was playing a prank on me.
Right.
And because I was such a loner at the time. And
it was about the same time that She's All That came out, right?
No, this was 1994, 95, man. It was long before that. Pulp Fiction was in the theater. Like they were UC Santa Cruz was touting Pulp Fiction as like we're in a movie. He was making fun of UC Santa Cruz in that movie.
Right. And
they wore it on their sleeves.
Right.
And but no, and she was the woman who introduced me to Taxi Driver, the movie. And because
she's fucking weird. That came up earlier today. I still haven't seen it.
You haven't? Oh, go watch it. It's a great movie. But she took me to see that movie at the library. We watched it, and then after the movie, that's when she tells me, "Yeah, you remind me of Robert De Niro in that movie."
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
nice.
Travis Bickle, the fucker, that dude.
Right.
I remind you of him. I'm like, the only thing we have in common is drinking Coca-Cola.
Right.
And when I look back on it, as resentful as I was and all that, I get why she thought that, and that was actually almost probably something I would have wanted. I was trying to. I was doing things. I was living kind of a contradictory paradox of a. I wanted attention. I wanted affection. I wanted all those things, but yet at the same time, I'm doing all of these things to create
fear.
My own isolation.
Right.
Well, it's like a combination of subconscious and conscious.
Right.
I'm doing things to isolate myself on purpose, almost.
I do the same thing,
and without realizing that I'm doing it on purpose. And so when I look back on it, I'm like, oh, I very much was. There was a Travis Bickle aspect to me. Only I wasn't going to go and try and shoot the president or save a hooker from whatever. But I was acting out in some strange ways, and I was doing a lot of LSD at that time too.
Do you, if you're willing to talk about it, are you a submissive?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Have you ever played around with that?
I'm not into like putting stuff up my butt.
No.
Might have played around once or twice.
Power in the bedroom. Meaning,
I don't mind
whether it be through dirty talk or hair pulling, choking.
Dirty talk makes me uncomfortable. Only a couple times. No, I'm not aggressive in that regard. I like.
She's aggressive, is what I'm saying.
No, yeah.
The girl being aggressive.
I remember one chick that I was with for a little while. She had sex like a very sensual porn actress, and but she had a horrible life that led her to that point. But and that's why
I love her. Whoever she is,
women with traumatic backgrounds sometimes can be the most sensual, affectionate love. Yeah. But I'm really, I would say that dare say, like having sex with a chick from behind and You know, I'm really more just like I'm very affectionate, and
Right.
I like things to kind of hit a groove. I'm slow. I take my time. I am a tortoise man. Slow and steady wins the race.
Okay.
Um,
Wait, are you talking about leading up to sex, or are you talking about in the bedroom? We're just gonna
in
hang
the bedroom
out?
sex.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
like actual sex. Like I'm not fucking
Right.
hurry up and aggressive like a jackrabbit.
Right. Unless you're in an elevator.
Well, I've had, and that's the thing. That one relationship, chick only liked having sex for like 5 minutes at a time, and I'm like, well, I worked up my whole lifetime was spent, basically, having
Elongated.
sex for like turning in, tantra bullshit, I guess, and and a lot of times I'd just finish myself off. I wouldn't really, come on command or whatever, but
Sure.
but also I'm like I that's one of those things where. As you get older, whatever you're kind of, I just stop caring, like about that shit. And so now, like, I actually, when I was younger, this would be embarrassing as all hell.
Sure.
For me to even talk about, or
Right.
even I would get uncomfortable
Right.
about any of it.
Right.
And you can hear about it in a comedy act or something, or in a movie or whatever, but. There was just so much shame wrapped around it, and then
Right.
I think a lot of cocaine behavior probably.
Sure.
Cocaine and just age made me just not give a fuck so much more. I love eating ass. That's one thing.
Thank you
I
very
love
fucking.
eating
You're
ass.
the
That's-
first fucking.
a clean ass.
You hear that, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah.
If it's showered, I'm fucking.
There's women that
A little
that
thumb in there?
made
Shut up.
There was women that made me feel bad for that, and I'm not trying to put my dick in there either. I just like eating it. There's something I love eating a nice
Yeah.
ass, and
It's nice and dirty.
it's
It's
one of
clean,
those
but it's
things-
dirty.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like and I liked it before it became popular in porn. You want to know who I give credit to? Eddie Griffin. Eddie Griffin.
What in the fuck?
In his comedy special Dysfunctional Family. That's what made me aware of it. Because he does that whole bit about eating pussy and that you're just like a half inch away from eating ass.
Right.
And that bit made me, I just remember that. But then next thing you know, I'm 69 with this one chick I was fucking around with or whatever,
Right.
and it almost happened exactly as he describes in that bit, where I'm eating her out, and then all of a sudden I go a little bit like, because she's on top of me,
Right.
We're doing 69. And I went a little bit above, which is, behind,
Yeah.
I go up a little higher, and next thing you know, I'm like, oh, I just licked your asshole. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, it's not so bad.
No, it's not.
And I got into it, and she was the one who got a little more like, oh no, whatever. I'm like, no, stay right here.
Yeah,
And I'm
shut
like,
the fuck
I
up. Just,
held on to her,
right.
and it was funny because it happened exactly as he described in that bit. And
Thank you.
and then what's funny is later on when I did it to a girl who it would make her feel a little uncomfortable, she then said that after I did it, when I kissed her, she said it kind of freaked her out because she tasted Cheetos. And that was something I told.
Was she clean before you ate her ass?
I imagine it didn't seem like I didn't.
I love it when you're in the
feel
zone. You're in
any-
the zone. You can't.
Yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if I ran into a dingleberry, I wouldn't have cared that much.
Oh Jesus!
But
You ever been eating a girl's pussy and you smell like that she shit recently though?
no. Oh no,
Really?
yeah, maybe no, yeah, once.
I've had
It was
that
a
happen
friend.
twice where I'm like,
Yeah, just
oh,
once.
God.
Yeah, it can ruin a good time. But
Yeah.
but
I mean,
it
it
was
stopped me from eating.
It was
pussy,
funny but no, it's funny this chick, she when she told me that, I told a couple of my female comedian friends that, and so after she told me after this happened, and so ever since then, what was it? I think they said every time you talk about your ex-girlfriend, I can't help but think about Cheetos or something
Right.
like that.
Right.
And I was telling my friends Shannon Murphy and Ira Spencer about that on the ride home. And we were
Shannon's
laughing.
fucking awesome.
Oh yeah,
dude.
they're great.
She's fucking.
Shannon's one of those
hilarious,
cool
dude.
people. Shannon loves my girlfriend. She's one. She wants her to stay around as long as possible so that they can become better friends. And because I couldn't wait. They actually became accidental Facebook friends first because I sent her my girlfriend's profile to check out, and then she accidentally sent a friend request in checking out the profile. She didn't mean to, but she accidentally sent one, and of course Molly accepted it. And the next thing you know, I see them liking each other's stuff and whatever, but they never met.
The
in
look
person.
on your face is getting a little too cute, and it's
it's
bothering
wonderful.
me a little bit.
No, I'm a little bitch, man, and so I never got to experience these things. And and I got to do a gig. I was doing a show at Shannon's boyfriend, actually Shannon and her boyfriend Dave. They run a show. Well, it's mainly Dave's show, but at the Vinyl Room in Burlingame.
Dave's really funny.
Yeah. Every third Tuesday, they run a show there. People. That's a fun show. And I was doing it with it was like one of their anniversary shows, and the lineup with like a lot of cool comics that I like. And I was like, oh, Molly, Molly has seen enough comedy shows, but she'll come to one if she wants to. Mm-hmm. I say she's always invited to any of them, but sometimes I want her to go so I can get a ride to a few things. But she ended up. I said, "This is a show you want to go to that I want you to go to because you'll be able to hang out with some of the comics that I really like,
right,
and you'll meet Shannon." And sure enough, they did, and they hit it. Like I could just see, oh hey, like they never got to meet, and it was fucking hilariously, sickeningly cute. So but
it's weird how like
that's a different Me Too movement. All right,
I have my foot
of love
in music, but I also have my foot in comedy as well. And I don't.
Who's that on your shirt? That looks familiar. Who's that?
You ever seen Wild at Heart?
That's Willem Dafoe, huh?
Yes, it is.
I didn't even recognize him. I've only seen it once.
It's a great fucking movie.
I've never been a Lynch fan.
I like it better than Blue Velvet.
The only Lynch movies I really like are Elephant Man and Straight Story.
I like Elephant Man. I really want to see.
Elephant Man's great. I like his movies that are like based on real shit, but never been into his like.
Did you see this sober or high?
Or drunk? I saw it. I remembered it enough. I just don't like. He has. It's funny because like when a guy that I used to work with in movies, my friend David DePasquale, rest in peace. Yeah, he's a wonderful guy. He's the dad of a guy that I know, a friend of mine from growing up, Chris DePasquale. And we hit it off with movies. Like he actually edited my short film Dave versus the Chairs and was working on the sequel. And we loved talking movies. He was a big cinephile, and we would talk about it a lot. He loved David Lynch. Okay. He was Eraserhead's his favorite movie. Never saw Eraserhead. I knew a lot of my weirdo friends liked it and all that shit. And I was like, he made me watch it. He screened it for me in his living room. He had a pull down screen with a DVD projector. Right. We sat in his living room and I watched that fucking movie. I told him, I said after the movie, I said, well, I want to thank you for inviting me in your home to watch this for the first and last time that I'm probably ever going to watch this fucking movie.
But you can. That's one of those movies where like. There are some movies where I don't like it itself, but it's like I think I like Eraserhead. But like sometimes you're like, as somebody who does, I don't want to sound shitty, but like who does art, I can appreciate when someone risks. When someone actually gives a fuck enough to like make them feel uncomfortable.
Well, that was his first
film. I love the uncomfortable.
He clearly had a vision.
Right.
I don't know what of, but but he had a will to be weird, and I respect that.
Right.
And there definitely was like the punk rock aspect. There's some things I'm just not into.
Sure.
And but if it weren't for that, he when he made Elephant Man, a lot of the style and the vibe of it that's a real life story that very much feels like it's part of that Eraserhead world. Mm-hmm. And but I just wasn't I'm not into the artsy fartsy type of movies that are like, because there are some expressionists, but I get what because there's a lot that comes from a lot of German film and stuff like that. There's I've never really got into Lars von Trier very much, but he's kind of, I think, in that.
I really want to see that. Did you see that one? The what's his face? Not Ben Stiller. Fuck, not Matt LeBlanc. What the fuck? There was a trailer that came out called Jacob's Ladder or something. No, the house that Jack built.
No, I haven't seen it.
It looks so violent.
Really?
Matt Dillon. There we go. Matt Dillon is in it.
That sounds cool.
And yeah, he's like a serial killer, and apparently there's kids that get killed.
Matt Dillon. Matt Dillon's
I'm down to see. I'm down to see some kids get killed.
Like, but like if I saw the movie Mother. Have you seen Mother with Jennifer Lawrence?
I know it's on. I think it's on HBO.
That's a movie that I feel is kind of like has like some roots in like an Eraserhead type world, because it's a movie that feels like a nightmare. Right. Like a real nightmare. Right. It's and that's what Eraserhead essentially is, kind of like a dream, where because people went to see Mother not knowing what they were getting into,
right?
And as soon as it was funny when I went to go see it, because I heard it was kind of like this psychological, thriller or something, and I'm like, oh, this is a dream. Like, this is a nightmare. This is how dreams are, because the way things, and that's what I forgot. I forgot it was Darren Aronofsky, and I'm like, oh, this is his fucking, like Pi and all that shit.
Right.
And I love his movies, but like this one really went hard in the. I was like, I bet this is a dream he had, or based on like some nightmares that he's had, because it felt like there's very few movies that I feel like have. That capture the real feeling of like dreams, the way they move, the way time like goes from night to day so quickly. She instantly knows she's pregnant, and a few hours later she's to term pregnant, and like just the way that the movie moves, it's very much like a bad.
Did you ever see The Science of Sleep?
No.
Okay, so
what's his name? Not
the French motherfucker.
Yeah, Michel Gondry.
Yeah, that movie.
Never saw that.
It's not like. It's certainly not. I mean, Endless Sunshine is one of my favorite movies, but The Science of Sleep is like, there's this weird vibe where you're like, you don't know if you're dreaming or not. And that's what goes to that point of, if I like the person, or if once I'm sold on a motherfucker, I am willing to take the ride wherever they're going.
Oh, totally.
If they're going into bluegrass, if they're going into metal, if they're going into fucking experimental, I'm in the ride. I'm strapped in. Let's go.
And that's how I am with the Melvins and Tarantino films, and to some extent Robert Rodriguez, I guess, too, and some other film. Abel Ferrara he was one of my favorite filmmakers that got lost in the fray.
What did he do?
His most popular movies were King of New York and Bad Lieutenant.
I've heard
the original Bad Lieutenant. Yeah, the one with Harvey Keitel. And he was a New York filmmaker. He's still around, but he doesn't make movies nearly as often nor as good. But he was one of these guys that like. He was the epitome of like New York filmmaking in the 80s and 90s, and his movies still hold up to this day. I mean, King of New York is like a big favorite amongst rappers and shit. I think it's better than like Scarface and other shit, and it's more underground too, so it's more raw. But it was Christopher Walken is like a kingpin, and a badass one too. Like he's got some great scenes in that movie. But and he was also in a movie called The Family, that I want to say was like The Sopranos before The Sopranos, and it was a 1930s Italian mob family or somewhere around that time, and Vincent Gallo, that's an actor that was like, he's a very troubled, a very eccentric actor, character actor and actor who he made the movie Buffalo 66, if you remember, in the well publicized Brown Bunny that blowjob scene with Chloe.
I've watched that many times.
Yeah, and but no, he's one of those New York guys, but he's in The Family with Walken and a few other. Chris Penn was in it, I think it was, and it's a great movie that like kind of got shelved. It was only available in full screen on a DVD that I got for like $5, and I remember seeing it on IFC, and I'm like, this movie's amazing. Why wasn't it? It's a perfect Abel Ferrara movie. It's a period piece, but the hard boiledness of it was very much like then when The Sopranos came out not too long after it, and I'm like, and there's a lot of actors that were in that movie that went on to The Sopranos, and I'm like, dude, this movie was like The Sopranos of the 30s before The Sopranos, and it's with Walken. Like, how did this movie not become a hit?
Right.
And it's strange. He also made the movie The Addiction, which was like the vampire movie in black and white with Lily Taylor and Walken.
But now, Wild at Heart though, that's Nick Cage in one of the only things he's done that's good. Yeah. It's Laura fucking Dern.
He's been in a few movies.
Laura Dern.
Yeah, Laura Dern.
Motherfucking goddamn Laura Dern. Her mom plays her mom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It's got Bobby, this guy Bobby Peru, twisted, fucked up. Yeah. There's the violence and the way he uses sound and music, and the way he makes the colors. Fuck, dude, it's a good goddamn
I'll go back
movie.
and watch it.
It's a good goddamn
You gotta put it on
movie.
Netflix, man.
Yeah,
they got Twin Peaks on that motherfucker. Why can't they put some of his movies on?
I made a list. I just started going to these sites, just watching illegal movies. Fuck it, just do what I want. You know what I mean?
Right on.
I'm already lying to the insurance people. I have a question about your. How are you feeling on time?
I've got all fucking afternoon.
Okay, cool.
Talk to me, please, as long as you want.
Let's take a little PP break.
Okay.
So that I can PP, and then we'll come back to this.
Fuck yeah! I can get these peanut butter cookies.
All right. It happens. Fucking Laura Dern, though. I'm telling you. That fucking bitch is so delicious. All right, give me some more chips. Oh, are they good? Are the cookies good?
Oh, wonderful.
All right, give me one.
Yeah, grab cookies, man.
Cheat day.
Yeah, man.
Give a fuck. All right, let's see. Peanut butter fudge.
Yeah.
All right. I'm excited.
Yeah. Are you recording it?
Yeah, I am.
The Laura Dern, you're saying, I just...
Yeah, I like how you don't have to get into gear.
No,
You
I
can
am. I am. No, because I just saw or I'm a big fan of this movie that's newer, Founder, with Michael Keaton. And she plays a role in there that's kind of underrated in it, because she plays Ray Kroc, whatever the motherfucker.
Oh, the founder.
The guy who stole McDonald's.
Right.
She plays his first wife, which was... That movie's really unusual because it's a movie that humanizes and almost makes you understand
someone
a
who's
bastard
does bad
of
shit.
capitalism,
Right.
And gives him you see his side of things to an extent. Like, I want to say, because he's a despicable dude,
Really,
but that's not. It's like you almost watched. He's not despicable in the beginning, but he's only despicable once you see
the bigger
what
picture.
he's become, and the movie's not aiming to make him despicable either. It actually presents him I want to say it's one of those movies where I'm sure if he were alive to see it, he would be offended to all fuck.
Sure.
Because but at the same time, it makes you understand his choices.
Well, I don't like the whole fact that every movie has to have a message now. You know what I mean? Jim Norton was saying something like how back in the day, the writing was for the writing's sake, or it was like you felt like people were actually having a conversation.
Watch Bad Lieutenant, and talk about a message. I mean, that's movies. I want to say that movies weren't necessarily. I don't think every movie today so much has. I think that's part of the.
He said it feels like they're talking to the audience rather than talking to each other.
You want to know why that is? It's not. I don't think it's because. I think it's because of the quality of writers, and there's no auteurs these days where you don't have any, like, I want to say, like, honest to goodness, I don't want to say artists as much as in the film sense. Film has always been something that, as was said, like, is 5 years behind every other art form.
Really?
Okay. That was something I said, and I agree with that to some extent. The thing being now is that and here's the reason why I say you have the tools to make your own truly independent movies today. The difference being that how do you want it to look? How do you want it to feel and to whatever? I just saw that movie with my girlfriend a little while ago. I don't know if you know this, but I have a girlfriend.
Oh wow! Do you put your penis inside her vagina?
Yeah, I'm supposed to. Unsane. I saw the movie Unsane.
Oh yeah, that's made with iPhones. Isn't it?
And it was Soderbergh or whatever. He made it or produced it at least, and really effective thriller. I really enjoyed it, and it was probably the first time I'd seen a movie that felt like an independent movie, mainly probably because of the aesthetic of using phones.
Right.
And the funny thing is I couldn't figure out how I recognized the antagonist, and it's the dude from it's one of the guys from the original Blair Witch Project.
Oh, is it?
And I was like, shit! No wonder I recognized him, because I couldn't tell if it was somebody from comedy or whatever. There's comedians in it. Robert Kelly's in it,
really?
Who I'm sure you've been told you resemble.
Not anymore, goddammit.
Not
anymore,
goddammit. You just look like Robert Kelly. That's healthy. I'm sure he's losing weight too.
No, he's not. Dude, he's been on his like fourth fat.
Really?
Anyway, but yeah, no, I took a picture with Colin Quinn. It was probably Patrice
I
O'Neill.
think I remember, yeah.
Patrice was my favorite.
Yeah.
Colin is the second to me.
Yeah.
And I took a picture with Colin Quinn and my friend Brennan. And people and Colin retweeted it, and people were like, "Oh, look at fucking fat Bob Kelly," and I'm like, "God damn it!"
Well, that's why
I hate hitting a bottom.
That'll hurt you. That'll hurt.
But
well, what are you talking about? I didn't even think anything bad.
Well, then, yeah, but
you were making fun of my body when you were last time I was here.
Never.
Yeah, you were.
Me?
You were.
I'm a kind, generous soul.
What was it? Because I wasn't even making fun of your body or whatever, but you were talking about how you weren't making fun of it, but you were just like, yeah, you're kind of an odd shape, Dave. Like, I'm like, yeah, I know, I can't, I can look like I'm fat from some angles, and I can look like I'm thin from some other angles.
But that's nice. You have your
I'm
own.
Built
you're
like
a unique
SpongeBob
man.
SquarePants. That's what. I'm square in the middle.
But I feel like what was one of the things I wanted to say?
I don't know. Laura Dern.
How long had you done? I like you said that like Matt Damon. Yeah. How long had you done comedy before you got sober?
3 years.
Now,
I started in April. It was 3 years and a few months because I started in April of 2010, and I got clean in September 29th, 2013.
Now, part of it is, I'm sure, the fact that time and experience happens, but you can't. I'm telling you, you could tell, like you got. It's not just time and experience. You got better sober, right? I mean, I know for me, my writing. I mean, I got sober at 15, so it's not a huge. But
yeah,
like,
you're
my mind,
baby,
my all that stuff.
If I got sober when you got sober, I would probably have become. I probably would have achieved either one of two things. Either I would have gotten married and had a shitty, pitiful life and taking it out on my wife and kids.
Yeah.
Easily. Or I probably would have achieved one of I had a strange
No, you'd still be you.
No, I would be, but you got to understand something. Like I'm driven in a certain sense where if I'm not paying attention to like I fucking dive into shit and will do stuff
obsessive. In a good way.
No, in a good way. And if I became aware of my here's the thing. Here's where I went wrong. I didn't do hard enough drugs early on in my life to point out that I had a problem. I was dabbling with my feet in the water. As a wonderful comedian I've gotten to work with, Brett Ernst would call it, I was a bitch ass Kevin. All right, bitch ass Kevin uses the steps to walk to get into the pool. Like that's.
I see.
And I love how he described that because every time I go to use the steps to get into the pool at my lady's place, I always use the steps. And I'm just like, I'm bitch ass Kevin. Right. But it's one of his bits. But and so that's I don't want to say that I definitely. Here's why I say that is because I definitely probably did get better. Mm-hmm. I got clear or whatever. The thing was I had a growth spurt. Alcohol was really, I want to say, the main inhibitor because I took a break from alcohol from April of 2012 until January of 2013. And in that time, like 8 months, I had a growth spurt in comedy that really sent a message. I was already kind of showing some people in the end of 2011, like some people were seeing me have some really strong sets.
Right.
But by cutting out alcohol, like weed was not an inhibitor to me as much as it was just you smelled weed around me all the fucking time.
Right.
And it really didn't have much of an effect on me. That was the thing too, and I'd smoke it like a chimney because I'm trying to get that whatever that fucking numb is, and wasn't getting. I'd get the head rushes. I was buying all the top shelf shit to fuck my head up, and it wasn't working. Take shrooms. I was taking shrooms at least once or twice a week because I'd have access to those, and it wasn't so. And I had a huge growth spurt in writing and in performing. During that time, other people were noticing it, and I was getting more credibility with certain circles of our local scene, only because their first impressions were that I was funny. Because once you make those first impressions, it's hard to undo. Right. So when people saw me in 2010, 2011, when I was really trying shit, but it was never working, I just basically wasn't well prepared, and a lot of comedians, even ones that I don't think are very good. They get a lot of leeway if they're just fucking prepared,
right?
And I hate this.
It's true.
I see it a lot, and it's
same
fucking
thing with
bothers
music.
me.
People who I have so much talent, like I know I did. I thought, I have so much talent, I don't need to fucking work for it. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? So, like, when an alcoholic or an addict, they're looking for the way out anyway. They're looking for the less responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
And so if they can go, like, I'm so talented, I just don't get any breaks, and I just don't get, And so I feel like, not motherfuckers who are necessarily sober, but, like, people who are not, like, if you're an active alcoholic or addict, like, you're not gonna reach that fucking spot, or there's always gonna be something missing. There are some amazing comedians who are, like,
you have to be incredibly talented to be able to also to operate on that level well wasted.
Right.
No, and I do know comics that are at, I want to say that are at my level, but that are a level above me, but they're still like, I work with them.
Right.
And there's, and I see like, wow, if I had the talent that you have, with the opportunities I see you have, I would be really focused on my work and less focused on drinking and weed and everything.
And you may
distractions.
Be incredibly funny. Don't be a fucking hour late to the show. You may be incredibly funny, but if you're just staggering...
There's a lot of that.
There's a lot of that shit.
But in the end, that just hurts people in the long run. It's that whole thing. One of the things also that I was pretty honest with myself about comedy, I knew that it takes like a long time to get something unless you're like, one of these, whatever, hitting the ground funny. And even then, you still got a lot of lessons to learn.
Right.
This was I'm playing a long con with this bullshit.
Of course.
I was inspired to even make this choice by old comics. Don Rickles, Rodney Dangerfield, people who were funny into their elderly years. Betty White, in that I'm more or less planning to still be a funny old person and to try and make money off of being a funny old fuck. A grump. I've been a fucking curmudgeon. I've been an old man since I was a little kid.
Right.
And I'm just growing into it. I've been reluctant to do, I am, again, that's that compulsive non-conformist.
Right.
I don't like doing things that I see a lot of people doing, even if I want to do them. Same. That's why that's that whole sex reluctance thing. Yeah, of course I want to bang, but I want to bang the way it looks like in the porn. And I'm sorry, but that's just not going to happen with me the way that I am. That's why I don't understand having mirror. Like, if I look like a porn star, yeah, I'd want a mirror in the bedroom. But the last thing I want to see while I got a boner is me.
Yeah,
that's gonna kill my fucking boner. I'm like, great.
Have you ever done a video?
No. Why anybody? That to me,
I did a video once.
Oh God, dude, I would hate to see it, man. I would not. Like,
I got a nice dick.
The last thing,
what are you talking
about? No, it's not. It's the rest of you that's attached to it. The fucking flesh mass or whatever.
I know.
And it's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get that shit. I don't get the dick pics. I don't get.
Really?
No.
Talk to women who enjoy them.
No, I never met one, and even if one
you
did,
have, but not random or unasked for dick pics.
There have been some women have asked for, and I'm like, no, not some women. I can't even remember, because the fact is, I wouldn't want to hang out with a chick that wants dick pics, or if I did hang out with them.
But that goes back to that honesty thing.
No,
if a girl is horny about something, access that and let her play.
I'll tell you what, the most horniest women. Don't really. I've never. I love sluts, but I like sluts that are like cool sluts. I don't know what the difference really is, but then again.
But if she showed you a thing, if she showed you, if she was intimate enough to share that piece of herself with you,
I'm very fucked in the head kind of guy here, Pete. I'm just saying, like I don't.
I mean, that's why I'm saying it.
Not comfortable. No, I would actually be the type of guy where it's like things be going well with a chick, and like, yeah, I like the occasional dick pic. All right, well, it's nice knowing you, and I think because I'm not gonna.
Are you sure? I'm gonna ask it. I know it's probably hacked. I've never. Is it possible? Is it an insecurity thing? I'm not saying you don't have a nice package. What I'm saying is it possibly a piece of it? Mine.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, but is it a piece of it that you don't want it to necessarily be shown off? You don't feel like it's a great dick, it'll do the job, but it's not a show dick.
I don't want to be. It's not that I want to be showed
dick?
off. No, it's fine. It's average and thick, so I don't really give too much of a shit about it. I haven't really had any complaints really about it, except for one chick who had a pussy that was like basically like a wind tunnel.
Oh.
And it was like I'm looking for fucking survivors in it. And so it was
13 Thai boys.
Yeah, and she was a horrible human being anyway.
Sure.
But yeah, and I don't tout anything about it. It's more the fact that I just don't. It's not not really my thing. As far as like. Just it's the same thing. I'm not really the biggest fan of like seeing vaginas either. I love tits. I love asses. Sure. I don't mind seeing them in the context of the body.
Right.
But in a close up, I remember when one chick before before so much phones, whatever. When I was internet, I met this chick online through an internet service, and she was in Idaho, and she would like phone sex. I did phone sex one time. I was on coke, felt incredibly embarrassed, but she was sending me pics of what I assumed was her vagina. It was a vagina. I don't know whose it was.
Right.
But I was looking at it, I'm like, and it was cute and all, but I'm just like, this could be anybody's vagina. How am I it just seems like it was one of those things.
Was she a fat girl?
She was a big kitty.
Yeah, I can't do fat girl. I mean, I can.
That's you.
But
that's
I mean,
you,
like,
man.
Come on, man. You're telling me if she had sent a picture of her pussy and it was fucking like tight and boom and pow.
No, it was like tight, but it still just looks like a piece of skin fucked up. Like,
okay. Yeah. All right, let me package this because again, I feel like there is a large difference with the chocolate. What do you need?
No, I'm just looking.
Where the gummy? Did you eat the gummies already? Give me one of them goddamn gummies.
Yeah.
Cheat day. What? There is a difference, not just aesthetically. I'm not fat shaming the bitch, but what I'm saying is there is a difference between if I have to stick my finger like up to my second knuckle to reach a clit. You know that's a fucking difference.
You don't know the difference. You don't know how deep it is based on the outside. No, I'm not lying.
I needed to go because it's like it's baked in a loaf of bread.
No, if it's all sticking out and looks like what is it? I mean, it looks like you're opening up a roast beef sandwich, as it's known as beef curtains.
Like a lobster claw.
It's that's one thing. But if it's like if it's even. Still, it looks like the Sarlacc pit in fucking Star Wars. Right,
not the lips itself, not the labia majora. What I'm saying is the meat around it.
What the meat around it? What are you talking about?
I'm saying about like the gunt. You know what I mean? Like you know what I mean? Like have you what's another word for that?
The fucking pelvis of a woman's beautiful. That's fine. I don't care. I mean, that's thighs and her pelvis.
Right. I'm saying unless she's a bigger gal.
Even a bigger gal is fine. I'm not even. That's what I would rather see is the surrounding. I'd rather see more zoomed out,
right,
and know what it's attached to, than zoom in and just see what could be essentially anybody's vagina.
Right,
a close up.
What
that's
gets
why a dick pic is to me is just like, oh, it's just a dick. So what?
Even if no. But that's different.
It's not.
For a female, it's connected to you. That's why. That's why unsolicited.
Most women don't want them.
From their guy or from the right guy or from the guy they're interested in.
I think they're just dicks are gross anyway.
I just no dicks are, but you're not a girl.
I'm not a girl.
Here's what gives me joy about a girl who's wants a dick pic or a girl who's this is that she's showing you window into her psyche, her fucked upness. That's what's hot.
Oh yeah,
that's really? What's hot about the incest porn is that a girl is like she's fucked up enough to do that.
It's just wrongdoing. I mean, it's just how like, oh hey, we're not related, but we play out the whole family, whatever. It's it's just doing something that is taboo and you're not supposed to do. That's
yeah. But it's the mental game about it, and so that's why I like a girl
only with certain chicks that are hot that resemble a porn star, or the illusion of one. Rochelle Ryan. That's nobody's fucking stepmom. She's a porn star. Rochelle Ryan. She does a lot of these stepmom.
Brandy
movies.
Love.
Brandy Love. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. She's all right, but no, Rochelle Ryan. Nobody looks like nobody's stepmom. If that was your fucking stepmom, you're banging her. All right, I'll put it that way. Whereas Bailey Brooke, who normally plays the stepsister or stepdaughter,
right,
and I'm not even into skinny chicks, and she has got a great fucking ass and a great vibe about her skinny white self that just rocks like a thick chick. Mm-hmm. Like I'm a nice fan of hers.
Right. Feel like
so it's really more like I'm a fan of these actresses who then do these because I'm not like a fan of the genre in general.
Oh, okay.
It's not. It's more just the certain actresses that fill out certain. That I have attractions to because I like them in other movies that aren't. It's just I just know they do a number of these ones and it's obviously bad acting and all. Right. It just cracks me the fuck up.
Right.
But yeah. So it's not really.
You like Kimmy Granger?
I don't know who that is.
She's the first one. Kimmy Granger is she does this. She's pretty good.
Yeah.
She also though
I miss Friday.
She's the first one. She's the first one that I actually have spent money on in a long time. I have, I haven't had to buy porn in fucking probably 10 years or something. But she does this Patreon. I was like, you know what? Fuck it, $5. $5 a month. I'll tip her $5. Whatever. God bless her heart. She's showing me her pussy. It's all good. But I mean, like,
paying it forward.
Right. But what's the goddamn thing I was just fucking saying?
Well, while you're thinking about that, Friday, that's a porn star from like the 2000s. That
Friday.
She's Linda Friday is her name, but she goes by Friday. She's this thick fucking chick that big boobies. She banged a lot of black dudes, but I like her a lot from this one movie that my buddy lent me, and started following her online. And she's just got a nice, thick, trashy vibe about her, and I miss her. Wherever you are, Linda Friday.
Yeah, I'm looking her up right now.
Yeah, she's cute as hell.
There's also
she's got that kind of like.
There's also a judge.
She's got like
Linda
that
Friday,
slutty Beverly D'Angelo quality from like when Beverly D'Angelo was.
Oh,
was
look,
thick.
and Brandy Love was in one of the related pictures.
I doubt it.
I can get down behind.
Brandy Love was around during that
trashy, big fake tits. I can get behind that every once in a while, but I have to switch it up anyway. But here's a question.
Yeah.
I feel like, and this is not politically correct, but if it does make more sense, like why a black guy or a Mexican guy would be into thicker broads versus white guy, even though that's not politically correct.
What are you trying to say?
What I'm saying is, it makes sense that you're exactly.
I'm out of here.
It makes sense that you're into thicker broads, doesn't it?
Not really. No. There's.
I think it has to do with your. I think it has to do with your heritage, is what I'm saying.
I've used to go with that shit but I've seen plenty of uptight. I've seen
exceptions,
Eddie Murphy,
but I'm talking if it's 65% or more.
Eddie Murphy, who's touted by the black community, is like one of the funny. Is the epitome also of white tastes in his women. All right, that dude, he was so goddamn uptight. That whole movie in Boomerang when he's like all fretting over the feet and shit. That's real shit. He was so obsessive over certain qualities, but to me it's like there may be a general. There's definitely stereotypes, obviously.
Yeah, and they're there for a reason. I
joke with my girlfriend. I'm like, how many like you get anytime if she walked by. A group of black dudes that were, feeling pretty vocal and confident in themselves, they might holler at her. Right. It's normally a certain type, like it's usually black dudes over 6 foot, like 'cause she's like the perfect size for those whatever.
Right.
And I like curvy. I like women with curves. It's just the way I like but I've liked skinny women too. I've liked women basically just whatever, but what physically catches my eye, is usually I would say I like stout women. That's, I guess, the best word. Stout.
Like give me a. You talking like a schnooky?
Not like her, but no, actually, the chick Deanna who was on Jersey Shore. She was like the late edition. She's kind of stout, like the way I'm talking about. Like she's fit, but and you know what's funny? I love fit women. I love athletic women that are like fit and thick and muscle, whatever. Sure. And I do not exercise for shit. If I really wanted to hook up with a chick
you don't need to.
No, they tend to like dudes that are fit.
Yeah, but they're not as shallow.
A lot of fit women. No, but they exercise, so that means they've got stamina and all that shit. I don't. No, again, I'm lazy lover, man. I'm like, I'll eat your ass out to make up for a lot. All right, if you like your asshole licked, that's me. I always like.
I don't understand guys
Jay
who
and Silent
don't.
Bob Strike Back. Hey, baby, you ever have your asshole licked by a fat man in an overcoat?
You fuck on the rag. I can fuck a girl who's bleeding. I have no problem.
I have, yeah. And actually, she was the one that was more uncomfortable about it.
Lay a towel down.
Yeah, shit, man. I have no problem with blood.
Yeah. What was the other thing?
I don't know. You tell me.
I don't know if I had one more thing.
You better. We're still talking, motherfucker.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
You don't know?
Isn't interesting?
Porn. We've gone from man. Talk about some.
Yeah. I like not having a fucking structure. Like I like just conversation.
Reminds me of being on acid in a conversation. Just a lot of.
I don't think I've had anyone who goes as long. No, it's no offense. It's great. It's less work for me or whatever. Yeah. But like, you.
I'm a tantra conversationalist. That's how I am in bed too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like the way you're telling me that with like sales in your eyes.
Me love you long time.
So your ultimate goal in comedy is to have that same autonomy,
is to make my
freedom and money
to continue to progress. Now that's my ultimate goal, is to just keep progressing at what I'm doing. The way that I actually. Again, if I would have been smart and paid attention to even closer to what the Melvins were doing when I was first got introduced to them and all, the Melvins model for being a creative entertainer of any kind, to me, especially if you're doing something that, because again, I become more of the most pandering version of myself than I ever have been. But even with me today, my comedy still has a pet the cat backwards kind of aspect to it. I do pick material that, I have a long-winded bit about the billboards talking about suicide on BART. All right. And it's a challenging bit. It's not a bit that makes light of suicide, but I address it and talk about, because it's more of it's about advertising. Right. And and it's an aspect of it that to me I find is very insulting. Sure. And so I do this bit that is not easy to pull off, and I have a persona. That's where people like, why do you choose the name Mean Dave? Well, if you're too stupid to keep up, the point why I choose Mean Dave is because it gives me a sense of leeway in doing material that you may be too stupid to fucking understand. Right. And comedy is just at its dim dumb. It's gone back into a conservative place in entertainment, because you have so many people that are all clamoring to try and be somebody before they are somebody, right. and are wanting to pander to the powers that be, and thinking within any of the different. That's why everybody's too self-conscious. Nobody really has nobody since 1999 or since prior to 9/11 really has, I want to say, a sincere point of view, because everything has become so self-conscious and self-aware that, because everybody's wanting to get somewhere, as opposed to really just being good, learning how to be excellent. You be excellent at something, it attracts what you're looking for.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, it does.
It does, but
you got to
be
driven
good
and
for
all that
who?
shit. For audiences, for powers that be, for whatever,
right. But
still,
as far as a music standpoint, here's why it feels weird. Because on a musical standpoint, like, this podcast is the most kind of attention that I've been getting, and I've been playing music for a long fucking. Well, okay,
I feel the same way with comedy, man. But that doesn't mean that I know that feeling,
right? But you want the money. That's what I'm saying. You want the fucking. I want
money, and in order to get money, you got to get better at doing more stage time.
Absolutely.
It's not just I want the money. It's that in order to be paid, I've earned this level that I've had right now, and some people would even argue that I deserve more money for what I do, which I have to remind myself that, because sometimes I do take gigs for low pay, but just to throw in some more money into the bank on that night. Sure. But I also do gigs that a lot of people at my level can get that are decent paydays. You were, and
Cobb's,
so,
Punchline.
Not so much that, but there are some gigs. I don't want to name them because I don't like helping anybody anymore. But I've done private gigs. I've got some other, I haven't exploited it that much, but I can more if I wanted to. Recovery gigs pay pretty decently if you're doing gigs for recovery events.
What about corporate?
Corporate, I want to. And there are avenues into that if I were friends with the comics. I'm friendly with comics that do that shit, but I'll tell you what, they certainly like a type. And those types tend to be, again, that are more reflective of the status quo of, white comic, or white comic with a beard, or comic who looks like they used to work at the motherfucking place. Right. I've never been a popular employee wherever I've worked. Even when I was good at the company that I worked at, there was always some asshole who did not like my presence. Right. Mainly because of this commitment to, I remember I got called a truth teller when I first started doing comedy, and it's like, what's wrong with, I wouldn't call, like, they got to label something. And it's like, and again, but I see where their point is that I do root I have trouble with entertainment that is reflective more of a level of deceit or dishonesty.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you can play with the truth. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean that everything you say up there has to be gospel truth. But to me, what works with my comedy mostly is that it's rooted in some kind of realism, and then I take it into fantasy land or whatever. Right. But getting back to the Melvins, what their model was, they had an incredibly unpopular sound. When they moved from Washington, they were in Washington, they moved to San Francisco in the mid '80s, I think, and they had a sound that was so challenging. It was but the smartest audience, the audiences that tended to be smart, were attracted to what they were doing because they were doing something incredibly different that no one else was doing, and it was a sincere, honest vision of what they were doing, and they busted their ass at it, and I mean their music reeked of work because it was not easy to. It's a strange combination of almost like progressive changes with punk rock aesthetics and just a lot of challenging. It was very challenging. Okay. They changed the way I looked at music too, the way they performed it and everything. And so when I got into comedy, one of the things, my goal was to really, I was like, well, I want to be the Melvins of comedy, which when I thought about that, I should have thought about it a little more. The Melvins have never broken through and become a mainstream act. But at the same time, they've worked harder than any other band, that they are still relevant to music today and are still have a level of, it really just more, I want to say is it's a work ethic combined with a sense of real creative vision in doing what they really want to do. So when I would, I said that back then just because I thought, I want to be thought of it. Well, then when I thought about it, what does that really mean? Well, the Melvins were always never really popular amongst even their peers, right? Or they never really had peers. They always seemed like a lap behind the bands that were their peers at certain points and all this other shit. But it is that I look at it like, oh, it is kind of like that tortoise in the hare thing, like slow and steady wins the race, and that they focused on. There's no race. Like, find the thing that works for you and keep working at it. And the fact is, all these motherfuckers, I watch what everybody else does too, and I pay attention to it. What are you chasing? Is it really improving your comedy? What does improve your comedy? What makes it better? What is it? Challenging yourself doing, because also, a lot of people are traveling more. They think they got to go to New York and L.A. And I like traveling. I want to travel and go to. But I'll tell you what. You get up and you move. You ain't making any money wherever you move to. Right. I think you can go there and visit and have some vacations and get some sets in. Right. And come back to where you establish yourself. And the Bay Area for anybody who's an unknown comic is the best place to be as far as I'm concerned, because you have more stage time anywhere else, even when you suck. There's so many shitty comics right now that are trying comics that, but I'm watching a few get better here and there. I'm watching some people even go from being I thought they always sucked to they're actually, now they're at a level, they're getting hired at Punchline or other clubs. And there's always the same things too. There's certain advantages to being a tall white dude or being an acceptable clique, accepted into certain cliques of comedy in the hipster scenes and whatnot, and a lot of them still like to think that they're not cliquey, and I'm like, nah, it's pretty obvious.
I'm gonna go to New York. Yeah. I think anyway. Yeah. Because I have a very fantasy driven fucking mind.
Yeah.
But I'm
How old
gonna go
are
out
you
there.
again?
I'm 32.
32. Okay, you're young. So, I keep forgetting you're like 10 years younger than me.
So I'm gonna be going to New York. If I could just be one of those guys.
Oh, doesn't everybody
and I'm not
want
comedy,
that?
And I'm not necessarily, but I do have a foot in comedy, which is why I think the podcast kind of works, but whatever. All I'm saying is, if I could just be one of those motherfuckers, one of the Colin Quinn, just sitting at the table with those pieces of shit, I'm going to fucking do it. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to goddamn do it. Okay. Tell me. What? You've been out there?
No.
Okay, then what are you talking about?
I'm saying I have friends that are out there.
Okay.
They have fun paying for stage time, that's for sure. man. I saw a lineup on one of the shows. I was telling one of the guys who just moved out there a few months ago, but he comes back here all the time because his girlfriend lives out here.
Okay.
She's a comic too, and I said, yeah, I saw you on the lineup with all these comics that are all from here over there in New York. I'm like, yeah, you could have done that fucking show here.
Right.
Like, I'm like, you guys just basically, just all went over there just to have a show. Like it's. And I was talking to him about it, and I'm sure being in different environments does inspire new material. All that, there's good things about it. I just bust their balls because there's certain people I know that will work at it that moved out there, and there's other people where I'm like, it's not like it's out here. And right. I don't. A lot of people when they move to L.A. or they move to San Francisco or to New York from here after they get really well here, they move out there with a handful of contacts, but it's starting all the fuck over if you're going to move there.
Right.
Whereas there's other people who I know would go down there a lot while living here.
Right.
Or go down there and maybe occasionally go out there. It's mainly L.A. I think they benefited a little more, a little bit of ways. But the fact is, too, I don't think a lot of people that are in comedy at the level that I'm at, under or above, really love it. I think they love it. I think they're fans. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a fan. Right. I was a fan. I'm no longer really a fan. I like certain comics and all that, but it's a lot of dead inside now. Still a fan of music, but I think a lot of people. But I do love to perform. I do love and I do love it. Here's the thing where I had more of my instincts to fuck with an audience in my 20s and 30s. Now that I'm in my early 40s, there's a joke in Funny People that is very accurate that Adam Sandler makes as in the character that he's making when he's doing stand-up. He goes, when you're in your 20s, you're like, fuck my parents, man. Fuck you, man. You rebel against all that. And then when you're in your 30s, you're like, fuck the system, man. The system fucking sucks, man. You got to tear it down, whatever. Then you're in your 40s and you're like, I'm hungry. What's in the fridge?
Right.
And I was like, that's a very accurate, in terms of your value system. And and now that I'm in my 40s, the people that knew me when I was doing comedy in my 30s, even when I was still getting loaded and a little bit after that, I was fired up against hypocrisy and a lot of other paradoxes and just I had a lot of information to draw upon when I was living in a defensive way, blaming everything for my problems.
Of course.
And I had a lot of information to back it up.
Right.
One thing that recovery's done is really made me dumber, I feel, in the sense that because I'm not trying to, I don't want to say dumber, but just not as interested in retaining information that I don't think is of any real value.
Right.
Beyond my own interests.
What fires me up for the anti stuff is really, I mean, and it is completely spurred on by my spiritual practices, is that all of the bullshit that disconnects us, I want to get rid of. And it's not from a standpoint
and yet you made a podcast.
That's what's doing it. This is what's connecting me to more people.
Really?
The fact that I get to explain myself instead of just have a blurb of less than a paragraph on Facebook. The fact that my opinion on a certain topic is not cemented in a song that's 3 minutes that has to fucking rhyme. The fact that I can have this conversation with other people from lots of different walks of life, from the Proud Boys to the fucking drag queen to this to that. Yeah. The fact that
that's right, you had some Proud Boys.
I'm trying.
That name just sounds so gay.
Yeah, it does. Put the mic a little closer to your face. But,
I have a loud voice. I wanted it to be echoing.
It
was a conscious artistic choice I made.
I appreciate you trying things on my podcast.
Proud Boys
that's connecting me more. This is the fact that I can talk about getting my dick sucked by men.
I'm poking my finger at you.
Please.
Here's what bothers me about it. Why couldn't we just have this conversation without the fucking podcast?
Because people want to know you.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
No. It's not about you that people want to know. People want to be. This is not just entertainment. It's also connecting people. That's what it fucking. This is honesty.
Really?
The fact, absolutely. I will fight you on this. It's not about you. They don't want to. They don't want to know you. Oh, gee, golly, work, Mean man. Dave is on the podcast. They want to listen. They want to hear experiences from other people. They want to feel like, oh, I had that same fucking thought. Oh, I hate fucking stupid ass Metallica too. Oh, I fucking jerked off to this thing too. Or I did the. Yeah, absolutely. It's connecting people.
I don't know, man. Again,
poke, baby. Do what you do.
No, I'm fine. This is that 40. This is that 41. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, Pete. Whatever you say, buddy.
I'm telling
you.
I
was optimistic too at one point. You know? Yeah, man. I want to connect to people.
No, I mean, I genuinely
that a million fucking people do.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, the reality is that I think I'm right. So. I'm going to press you on this, though, because you said, what's the deal with let's just do this outside of this without microphones?
No, I'm not saying, like, you know, my point being, people are more interested in, or I feel like this is actually an excellent conversation, by the way, compared to a lot of podcasts that I've done with people that are trying to do.
I'm fucking great. I know.
Where they're trying to do
thoughtful.
They're trying to imitate their idols.
Yeah, right.
But in doing so, they end up talking over each other,
right.
Not really communicating, right. And just being a bad and it just is bad. And
right.
It's just a lot of noise.
Right. And
because I used to have a podcast for like 2.5 years or whatever, and we actually built a following and all that stuff, and it was great, and it was a lot of fun, and and I had to leave it because it was at that shithole FCC unfree radio.
Yeah.
But it was I was able to run rings around John Miller while being there and all that, and again we had a following and all this other shit, but I had a great time doing it too because I loved radio when I was growing up. I loved the idea of having like a radio show. Right. I liked it when it was live streaming too because it was in real time.
Sure.
There was a lot of it, and I just didn't want to. Some people say, "Why don't you just make your own podcast?" I'm like, it's just not the same. I like the feeling of live streaming, which is the closest thing to like terrestrial radio or something like that. If you're not on terrestrial radio, and even on radio, then you can't cuss. You have FCC regulations, all that
right.
bullshit.
Right.
So it was like one of those things where and I experimented with other different mediums but at the same time, one of the things that was fun about when I was doing my show is we adapted to whoever the guests were. There were some guests that were horrible at having an intimate conversation,
right.
But they like to be all hacky and jokey or whatever. I also made the show to listen to if I was on acid. I made the show for me, okay. and it had this acid thread where I'd play live. I would play music. With lyrics in it too, in the background
during the conversation.
So it's like listening to a conversation. It was fun too, and it was a lot of happy accidents. Like when you play a lot of Cool Keith, nothing's funnier than hearing some of his porno rap in the back. You take your pussy out your ears, just something in the middle of a conversation that of whatever.
Right.
I loved my show, and I made it had that kind of thing, and then it had to, had to end or whatever. But what I was saying was like one of the things that show was built on though was moments that I've had with people in real life. I built it to be like to hang out with the new friends I was making in comedy and in music. I had music people on there too.
Sure.
But I have a lot of friends or people that I hung out with where we sat around and we bullshitted about a lot of different subjects of that nature. And then what I found in the last few years, maybe it's just me getting older and not having any friends anymore or something, unless I'm in car rides with people, people, they would rather they'd rather do this setup to have a conversation like this and feel like it's like
for something.
Content. We're making content for our brand and for, whatever, all this jerk off talk.
Right.
Which really to me just sounds again like working in an office.
Right.
There's so much more of this mindset with these with just this clone culture of people that are trying so hard to be something, to be what they see working for other people, but not realizing it's like that's what worked for them.
Right.
It's one of the things that I think recovery is very helpful in learning, like, what works for you. Take what works for you from other people, but what works for you isn't going to work for everybody the exact same way.
And even more importantly, what matters, and obviously it's easier on some episodes and some conversations, but I carry this with me. My bullshit fear, I go, there is no sacred place from that, but being in the fucking moment is what actually matters to have a good conversation. To adapt, to all kinds of different things,
We got chips, we got gummy worms.
Right.
We got peanut butter chocolate cookies.
Because I had thoughts
I'm
of
saving the Pellegrino for later.
Please do.
And 2 bananas, dude.
You can have both of those.
I'm taking them with me, man.
Because cheat day is no place for
no shit, man. I only eat one in the morning.
Because I had the thought of like I wanted to bring up the word nigger with you. That's what.
Oh, good God! Why?
Because I know that you had opinions about it, and sometimes like when you were coming on,
I have a bit that's based around
yeah.
use of that word in comedy.
And I get why, but I guess it I had a thought like there might be some things that Dave and I like disagree with, and that's fine.
You like a lot of comics that do like to bring up that word.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah,
Which ones?
You saying nigger
just now?
The comics in New York and there's a lot of comics.
All I know is one.
Which one's
Louis?
That? No, there's more than that have said it. That not. I don't want to say that Louis used it in his act with a bit around it, because he knows it's a dangerous word.
Sure.
And he can juggle fire around that word in front of his own audience. In front of his own audience, there's a difference between that and is Louis going to do a show in the heart of Harlem or somewhere where there's a large black pop in Atlanta and try to pull that shit off?
But yeah, maybe
I'd love
to
see that. I'd love to see that because and I'm sure. He can't. He's talented enough where I could see him possibly pulling it off. Yeah. Doug Stanhope, don't think so. And I know he's
not
got
a huge
bit.
Stanhope fan.
Well, no, he's one of those guys that also does. And the reason being, the word itself is just a word,
right?
All right, but it's a word with a very painful history.
Okay.
That I don't feel comfortable saying it whenever have said it in my entire life. Because it is a I don't feel comfortable saying faggot either. I don't feel comfortable saying really any slur.
Okay.
And I've said them. Right. I've said them in both ironic contexts and probably as a child in juvenile contexts and whatever. Never really used the N-word seriously.
Right.
Because that's been a word. Faggot I've used more because kids called each other fag all the time as kids.
Right.
But the N-word has the distinct displeasure in my world of being the sign. I would hear that word more, and I was actually I brought this up in my act recently when I was riffing about some stuff that nothing would be more shocking than going over to my buddy's house in elementary school or junior high and being there and their parents around or whatever. And something comes up in conversation. Oh, well, you know why that's the case. It's because they're a nigger.
Right.
Hearing that shit. And when you hear then being like instantly like, oh, to go from these are my friends' parents, respect them to, you're being raised by a piece of shit.
Right.
And it happened quite a bit. And that is, Bill Burr does that one bit of like, real racism is quiet. You look around, make sure the coast is clear. That's exactly in a home and one of the things that would really offend me about it was that the fact that like, motherfucker, I'm brown.
Right.
I'm not, I may not be a black person, but I'm definitely not the same. I was aware that I'm not the same skin color as you.
Sure.
And so to me, it's like, and I've been around people that have thrown wetback and beaner around in front of me, and I'm expected to like sit here, and I would just look at them like, really? You got to fucking, like, can you have at least enough sense to like understand that I don't care to hear that shit? They are just words, and what pissed me off about it more was that it did demonstrate a clear level of ignorance. And there's been some people in my life that I love and respect that have said these words, and that I would have like would be like, why do you think that like, don't you understand that that's like very outdated behavior? And these were smart people too,
right?
And I just it just fucking boggled my fucking mind that they. And this was like one of which I'm sure he's dead now, but my one of my surrogate uncle figures. I grew up working at a corn dog stand at the Alameda County Fairgrounds, and the guy who owned that stand was this gentleman Jim King, a very wonderful guy that I loved him like a family member, but very complicated, intelligent man. He's from Pennsylvania. Was living in Florida a lot of the time. He was a self-made millionaire 2 times over because he made his millions or made a lot of money, lost it all, made it all back. And for all of his intelligence, also had the classic 50s, 60s, 70s white man vernacular of just, there's black people and there's niggers.
Right.
And I'm like, no, there isn't. I get what you think you're saying, but what you're telling me is that you're a piece of shit. And that you don't understand that's that very... You're divided. Then to me, what's that saying is that there are white people, and that they're giant fucking white turds that are actually like they've been around so long that they've turned white, like the way shit used to turn white.
So for me,
So that's why that word has more of a stigma of systemic ignorance. It's like you are obsolete. You're one of the obsolete, and the more that you want to try and to me, it's like it's a word that's. It demonstrates. That's why it's so funny that it's still here, because it's been proven more so than not that it's like it's poison. It's a poisonous word. Maya Angelou talked to Dave Chappelle about this in like this one Iconoclast episode that's great. It's on YouTube. You can look it up. And she had the best analogy for it. She said, if you have a bottle of poison and you take the label off and you label it something else, it's still poison in the bottle. And I'm like, that's what, that word, because when he was talking about taking the word back and trying to, to use it for, that's what they, the way the culture was.
Right.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly, because that's not to say that you can't, use the word in a context to find humor in it. Yeah. Right. But it depends on where that intention is.
And that's what it is for me. Part of it is
it's a dangerous word.
You goddamn
It's a very dangerous word.
And part of it is like I want to use my identity as a means of defense of using it. But
why do people who are not black want so bad to use that word?
Because
even for humor's sake, even if it's not part of your world.
I'll explain. Because it's my fucking mouth.
That's fine, and be prepared for the consequences.
Absolutely. But are the consequences coming from a place of truth and love, or are the consequences coming from a place of power?
I think the consequences come from a place of just have some common sense.
But common sense, meaning, I'm not going to say it at a goddamn club, full of a bunch of... Okay.
But why would you
But that's common sense-wise. Okay, mainly because it's my mouth, and also because
I get it's your mouth, right? But I'm saying, okay, well, if by that,
but if it hurts people's feelings, where is that coming from? I as an example, and I understand that there's a difference. I understand that there's a difference, but I grew up as a fat guy. I grew up as a fat boy. I was made fun of. I wanted to kill myself. I literally had fantasies about cutting the fat from my body.
So your dream was to say the word nigger.
Exactly.
I understand. All right. Well,
see, you used it in a funny context. Isn't that great? Good for you.
I'm still just trying.
I know.
One thing has nothing to do with the other, Pete. That's kind of my point.
But no, here's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So when someone says fat, or when someone makes the nutty professor, or when that's it, sometimes it hurts my feelings. I don't want to.
Did they
understand what I'm saying?
Fat people, though.
But that's what I'm. I understand that there's a difference.
Horrible slaves.
I understand that there's a difference, but where does the responsibility lie?
I think the responsibility lies in understanding that we have a very distorted, troubled past in this culture. And in this culture particularly, and that the Civil War was only a little over 100 years ago.
Sure.
And that there's still fallout of emotions, generationally speaking.
And not just the Civil War, but Jim Crow, all that stuff.
There are still areas of the South where I'm not welcome in. Where if I walked in there, my cousin, she lives in Texas, and she's told me about being in towns where like, excuse me, you need to leave here. And like she's just Mexican.
Okay.
And not only that, but especially with the Trump times today, in the fact that people are feeling more emboldened now, whatever, you're seeing a surge in a lot of outspoken, outright, just like, you need to move your car because you're brown. It doesn't matter if you're black, brown, Asian.
Well, that's anything, that's a whole other thing, and we could get to that.
No, I'm saying that there's that. my point is there's roots there. There's some similar. It's in the same kind of, like, I want to say, ballpark of of entitlement. And I remember one time when I was in a high school English or a high school history class, it was actually horseshit. Our teacher was horrible. He would like to have debates and turn the class into Jerry Springer every fucking day over bringing up issues just so people could argue with each other.
Right.
And when they were people would argue when they didn't even realize, and this still happens today. This happens on threads on Facebook every fucking day, where people. They don't even realize that they're agreeing with each other. They're just arguing just to argue.
Absolutely, I'm on board.
Because why? And this is what I was thinking about on the way out here. People just want to feel like they're being listened to. They just want to feel like, pay attention to me.
Right.
They just want to feel like someone's saying you're right.
Right.
It doesn't matter what they're saying.
Sure.
They just want to say you're right. And that's such a pathetic fucking aspect to what these social media exploiting us, the likes, all of this shit, and it's hollow. There's nothing there.
And it's creepy. And
you
it's
take
all that
away
stuff.
Electricity, we don't have shit in terms of self-esteem.
I like that. I like that
of the current generation. That's it. No, that's what George Carlin talked about. You take away electricity, you are back in the fucking Stone Ages, my friend. And what are you going to build on there? And so my point being, though, is that in this word particularly, one of the things that I was noticing when I first got in doing stand-up was that there was a large number of new comics who were white dudes, primarily, who were trying to get away with trying to make a joke using the N-word in their act, in their early open mic act, and it has never fucking worked every time. It is hilarious to watch because it's fun to watch somebody do something so fucking wrong and just be like, oh shit, let's see what's gonna happen here. Who's gonna want to kick their ass tonight? Who's gonna want to whatever? And there's only been I don't think I've heard anybody pull it off be able to. There's one guy who had a joke that and look, I'm only fond of it now in retrospect, and not because it's a good joke. It's a horrible joke, but because he tells horrible jokes on purpose. My friend Charlie Spink, and as I've gotten to know that guy, one of the sweetest, coolest guys. He's performed to black audiences all the fucking time. Sometimes it goes really well, sometimes it goes whatever. Right. But he's had a long history with Tommy T's doing shows there. He's worked at the club a few times. Right. And but when I first saw him was at their open mic in 2010, and he was talking about he was doing a joke about, and it was just a joke to kind of play with words, and a dangerous word at that, saying that what do you call somebody who reneges on something that they whatever, and you see where he's going with this, right? So, and he would say re-nigger, and then and I remember being behind two black dudes at the open mic like, this motherfucker right here, like just shaking their heads, right? And that's what I would find. It's like, unless you got a joke that is fucking solid, right, or unless you have an act where, like, I remember one of the coolest things, Dorsey's Locker was one of my favorite. It was ask any comic that was going to Dorsey's Locker at the time. Best open mic, one of the best open mics, if not the best, in the sense that you're performing to a mostly older black crowd. And there was a crowd there, barflies and whatever. It was like a bar that was like out of Jackie Brown practically, and cool people, but people also that like didn't suffer foolishness in their comedy. Meaning that if they didn't like a joke and they heard you, right, not only would it be quiet, it'd be like, why is that funny? Right. Like, you get some questions. Right. You might even get some people being funnier in not heckling you, not outright heckling you, but it's like they would question your shit. Right. And they were the audience that I also watched, dumb comics. You could tell when a joke was good if they pulled it off in front of that audience. That was when I hosted that. I actually became like one of their a favorite after going there for quite some time and earning a lot of their love and trust as a comic there. And I would take things to certain lines here and there. And one of the things that was cool, I thought one of the nights I either did a set or hosted, I forget which, but I was talking about the nature of the N-word in some aspect, and I was like, the word, I'm not allowed to say it, and whatever. And what was funny, I think the host or the DJ Styles, he was like, "You could say it, Dave. You a nigga, man. You could say like." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, nigga." Like it was the A one. It wasn't even ER.
Of course,
the hard ER. And I forget but it got a huge laugh just because of the playfulness. Right. Understanding that I'm the humor was in the fact that I don't say that word.
Right.
And not only that, and I had a level of respect that for the audience's sensibilities, that's like I'm not going to come up here in front.
Absolutely.
Like I'm that I have a familiarity with this. I have my own familiarity with shit.
Sure.
And whatever. And I get offended when you call me white, and they did call me white. That was the crowd that I came up with a lot of humor that was based on my racial identity.
What I'm hearing over and over,
yeah,
from what you're saying,
yeah,
is that context matters over the word.
Completely.
And that's what the fight is for me. My fight is not against somebody who might get a little offended.
Though? What fight? Now that's what. Okay, now here's what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
Context does right, but there's no war here.
No,
it's not even your war.
No, it's
who's oppressing
No.
Who is oppressing?
It's not a fight against black people.
No,
it's a fight against people who want to silence me or change my words.
I understand that, but where's
that fight, by the way, is not with motherfucking black people. That's with shitty, childish white people. Really, most of the time.
Understood
on social media.
But do you understand that that's because I have that are like that too. That do, that. I think the difference being it's like and this goes back to that argument I was talking about in my history class. These two guys are arguing. They're talking about one of the arguments that this one asshole had goes, those weren't my my ancestors were the one who were slave owners or whatever. That's not me.
Right.
That's not me. And I said. And I'm looking at him like, you live in a time that benefits from what was set back then. There's the systemic racism that's inherent in the aftermath. That just because you didn't, obviously you don't own slaves today, but the fact that you have is what Paul Mooney would call the complexion for the protection. You live in a time where it is safer for you than it is for any person of color, the darker they are. So to act as if
I don't necessarily agree with that, but okay,
that's
continue.
fine. What I'm saying is it's a fact. It's not you can not agree with it. It's a fact that living in a culture where you do benefit from the aftermath of a horribly racist point in time.
Okay,
you benefit from it. I don't know what your background is. You look ethnic.
No,
so I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about him.
But my skin looks a little. I'm racially ambiguous.
Yeah, totally. And that's why my understanding of it. I'm racially ambiguous too. Doesn't mean that that because of that I'm entitled to be like to be insensitive of history of a word that wasn't part of my culture. What's fact is like there's Filipinos that grow up throwing that word around like that's what I'm like. A lot of comedies based on the fact that Filipinos. There are Mexicans who said it. This guy Matt Curry's got a joke all about that, being a substitute teacher. That he's hearing that from his students, but one of them was a Mexican kid, and he looks at the black kid. He's like, "Hey, aren't you going to say anything? Like, doesn't that bother you?" And so it's and that's true because it really just has to do with your kind of what your circumstances were. I know white dudes that say it because they grew up in whatever hoods that they think, but there's also white dudes that grew up in hardcore Oakland or whatever but they don't say it.
But if that's the case, are we going to go each person by each person in a comedy crowd and say, okay, you're allowed to say it, you're not allowed to say it?
As far as the comedy context, you better make sure that if you're going to juggle fire with that fucking word, that's
that you're good enough to fucking do it.
That's my joke. Yeah. No, my joke makes that point. Is that if you want to juggle fire, learn how to fucking juggle first.
Right,
you are nobody. If you're nobody, probably shouldn't be fucking with that word.
Absolutely.
And
which is why it's easier for me to say it in the safety of a fucking
Doug Stanhope. Granted, they do use that word and get laughs from their audiences that are mostly white. And but Louis C.K.'s written for black dudes left and right, and he's talked in that in humor context, bringing up that word around them as well, and so there's again it has to do with like you're talking about context and whatnot, and it is language. I've been around black friends of mine who know that like if I bring up that word, I would sometimes I will say it to if it's if there's no harm in, and I'm not going to be outright hurt, but I prefer to say the N word only out to show respect to my friends who are black,
and I'm on board.
I'm not really into, that I don't like saying it.
Right, and I'm on board with that.
One of my black friends has the best joke about the N word. He said, what do you get when you spell the N word backwards?
Huh.
What do you get?
Regin.
It's drown. It's N word backwards.
Oh, I said. That's great.
Which is even more hilarious, being black people, the stereotype of black people in water.
Right.
So that you think about, that's exactly what I'm talking about,
okay.
and that plays on where your mind goes. That joke right there plays on, and there's been Dave Foley has a bit about it in his special he had on Netflix at one point where he has a whole bit surrounding it, and also the history of that bit with that word. And that's the thing, is because it's. To me, it's like there's certain things that I don't. Political correctness, I'm not a big fan of per se, but I think there's just because you think that you're going against political correctness, or is it really that you're really just
being a contrarian,
just being an asshole, Yeah, you're being an asshole.
So Patrice put it this way.
Patrice is a big black dude too.
Correct, and one of the things he said. You think you have power over me with a word?
Yeah, no, but he's also a smart man, and he's also.
And why would I? But why would
he's
I
also
assume
a dude that's so
that
intimidating.
The people in the room are dumb.
He's so intimidating. No, they are. They are.
But that's not my responsibility. And I'm not saying I should say it on stage.
I'm somebody who says smart jokes, and I'll tell you for a fact they're dumb. Comedy audiences.
But what I'm saying is, in this context,
dumb as fuck,
or on whatever, on lots of different things.
That's when Mean Dave is really mean, because it's not obvious. It's my buddy who I never really liked that much here and there was this guy. He's not even my buddy, but this guy Charlie Ballard. He was a comedian. Now he drives tour buses or something like that. But
you're a fucking gummy worm.
He was he picked up on. He goes, I know why you're Mean Dave. He goes, you're not. He goes, the fact is that you don't. If you're either people keep up with you, or you don't even.
You don't suffer fools.
Not at all, and you don't let them know either. And he picked up on it. He picked up on that.
I've heard David tells it like that too.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people like that. I think anybody who's intelligent doesn't need to make their point. Like it's like it's like being in prison. Because you realize the world is kind of like prison, and that you got to pay attention to the things to where you got to have instincts of the jungle to some extent, and really it's like you look out for those you love, but when it comes to other motherfuckers who are too dumb to keep up, like if you got your earbuds and you're walking across the street in full on traffic, I ain't gonna fucking save you. I'm gonna watch you fucking splatter all over one of these fucking cars,
right?
And not only that, I might be one of those dumb motherfuckers one of these days. And so, I just started wearing earbuds now. I just put music on my phone now, so I'm joining. I get it. I get why everybody.
2018.
I don't give. Don't stop saying that. You know what? That's one
How
of those.
dare
that's one of those
you not
hacky,
listen to fucking music from your phone?
2018, everybody.
How dare? What do you just watch the birds?
Clock.
What do you fucking? You have a fucking CD Walkman? What in the fuck is wrong with you?
It's 2018. Like, yeah, man.
What did you listen to?
I put a bunch of my music on my phone.
No, I mean before your phone was smart.
I listened to nothing. I listened to the sounds around me. I'd pay attention to, in case there was trouble.
Yeah, all right.
Newark's
not that bad,
though. Oh, dude, it's not. I'm out here every fucking day. I'm on BART every goddamn day. People just got murdered on BART. Did you hear about that? Or were your earbuds in? Right. Yeah, man. I was even telling jokes about that, about the reason why I justify not paying BART is because, it's like the last thing, if I did pay to get on BART and I got murdered, the last thought I want going through my head is, fuck, I paid for a full round trip and I should have just snuck on.
I paid to go to Oakland and I'm only going to Hayward.
I paid for my death. God damn it. Fuck that shit. I don't want to pay for that.
I feel like so what was going on with all that shit with right away people going, it's white supremacy. And it turns out, the guy's just insane. But that same culture is where that, if I want to call it a fight, it's not really a fight.
Everybody's
but
batshit
it is
crazy today. Everybody's batshit
I
crazy.
agree, but who has more power? Don't fucking tell me that the people who want freedom of speech have more power.
Nobody. I don't think anybody has any power. I think what power that there is. You want to know who has power? Banks or people with money. No, money. The money and the weapons and the drugs are power. Nothing else. Nothing else.
Yeah,
that everything
touche.
else is really just a lot of voicing your impotence over shit that you really don't know that much about. Because the ones that do know about all that shit, they're quiet as fuck. Notice that. I mean, shit, man. There was a bailout in 2008. Notice nobody. You know, we keep bringing it up. One person went to jail or some shit like that.
Man.
You got a shit ton of criminal millionaires and billionaires.
Right.
All right, from all of that.
Right.
And they quiet as a peep. They still just influence what they want, deregulation, all that other bullshit.
Sure.
Let Donald Trump take all the heat for everything. Let him take the heat for all that shit. Because it's just like what Chappelle joked in one of his specials. Like, all these, dumbass poor white people getting snookered by this shit, thinking like, he's fighting for us. Like, no, you dumb motherfucker. You are poor. He's fighting for me. Like, he's just a businessman in the office, which is dangerous. And he knows how. He knows enough. People give him not enough credit for the fact that, like, he's a guy who is not qualified to be president, who became president, and he's made it in 2 years so far. He's been in there for 2 fucking years.
Right.
So or almost going on 2 years. It's like a year and a half. All right, that's already a year and a half into a presidency that not only he should never have been in, but he's said a whole lot of shit to get everybody stirred up over a fucking wall and this, that, and the other. What has he really done? Nothing. Other than really.
Wait, so then doesn't
one
that
of the things
make
that he's
point
proven
that
in
it's
my
okay?
One of the things that he's proven in my mind is that there was no such thing as terrorism, except for the terrorism that is definitely sponsored by our own intelligence community that was orchestrating that shit when we had powers that be in office who wanted it to happen.
I'm going to go back to that question. It's
Because
either
if they're a real
wait.
We
It's
have
either
the weakest fucking
nothing
leader right now, and who would definitely make the worst decisions through all that shit, and nothing's happened.
Nothing has happened? Like, if nothing has happened, then doesn't that
we are just this
mean
fucking
it's okay?
We're just this gaslit country, man. We're just a gaslit country of whatever power structure that goes into that thing. They have an agenda, whatever their fucking bullshit agenda is, mostly to serve themselves, mostly to serve whatever other agendas and organizations they're a part of. And granted, the fact is, like, this is what cracks me up is when people always like to throw around conspiracy theory, like they use you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, you know what a corporation is? A fucking conspiracy to take your money for goods and services that are not worth the value that you're paying for them. That's what a conspiracy is. Conspiracies are just people who are organized with an agenda. All right, that's it.
Okay.
And to think that people aren't conspiring to work in your best interest, and I'm not talking about some James Bond fucking,
Sure.
I'm talking about just sloppy, bad intentions, groups of people who definitely conspired to fucking rip. There's like loose conspiracies, being the mortgage crisis that went on. That wasn't like a complete organized fucking conspiracy to complete, but it was a conspiracy of greed, of like people that were all moving in the same direction, who were basically choosing to be ignorant of the consequences of their actions because they were just counting money. All right, and then when it all fucking went, there were a few people that saw into it all, to short all that shit. That's what the great movie Big Short's all about, which is haunting, because the guy who predicted that, who's in the depicted by Christian Bale, his next venture that he's talking people to invest in, and he was right about this mortgage crisis when nobody else, water. And that's that, and you could see that happening. That being a key resource in the future that's going to be, it's going to probably skyrocket in value in within 20 to 40 years, with whatever other horseshit, whatever. And I don't like thinking about all this shit. My recovery helps me with. These were reasons that I used to get high, but now it's like I'm it's. This is a great. I used to kind of do this as a joke, but it never quite worked as a joke. But I love this moment with my mom. What you're hearing right now is a lot of the mania that I would use to justify my drug and alcohol use.
Sure.
Okay, it would be like, everybody's full of shit. This is a shitty fucking world. Shitty fucking people. Everybody's just trying to get theirs and whatever. This goes back to even the things why I would be like, if I was getting high and loaded and the Me Too movement happening, like, you bitches are asking this. You like men like that. You want all this shit. All right? I'd be saying shit like that. And so I'm looking at it from a very, I would just look at the world as, and the fact is, I'm just blaming the world for not confronting my own character defects. Okay, I'm looking at the world, and it's just a mirror of my own sickness. And then as I got clean, I one of the things that would happen less and less, but my mom would notice this because I was still living at her house, was that my outbursts where I would get caught up in my head in these loops of just what you just heard.
Right.
I would get so worked up to where I would even be like telling her, you're part of the problem. I was like sitting there blaming my mother, who's letting me live in her fucking house rent free and shit over some bullshit I whipped up in my head.
Right.
And this is just part of that psychosis that drugs, self-centered behavior puts you into. And so they would happen less and less. But on this one, I would dare say the last one that I really had around her, she's giving me a ride to a recovery meeting. All right. And on the way, and I was feeling a very low attitude that day for whatever reason, and I forget how I even got on. I'm like, you know what? When I was getting loaded, I was really comfortable living in a world knowing that it was a shitty piece of shit world with shitty fucking people, and I was completely at peace with it, just getting high and being numb to it all. That's why, the drugs and alcohol. Right. But obviously they stopped working. But now that I'm sober and I have some time under it, I know that I want to stay sober. So that, so I can really feel all the emotions of joy and happiness that I'll have in watching this world turn slowly into hot garbage soup. Because it just seeing that, to just feel all the emotions of look at all this shit just going to watching this bad Michael Bay movie happen and play out in my head. And then my mom, I'm freaking my mom out again. Right. All right, as I've done before. She's a real sweetheart. My mom does not deserve some of this shit that would happen. And she goes to drop me off, and just before I get out, she goes, well, son, that's why you need to take care of yourself so you can see it when it happens. Right. And she just made me laugh so fucking hard with that sweet response of just hearing my outright nihilism. It in a very raw nerve, and I'm sober. So I'm definitely feeling like I've just, I've done it again. Mm-hmm. And she just handled it with complete grace and humor. And we started laughing so hard before she let me out of the car. I gave her a big ass hug, and it put me in the right frame of mind. I went back and went into my recovery meeting, and I was it was all kind of gone. And a lot of that very behavior is gone, because I could sit here and talk circles about all that horse shit. Right. But that's part of what I really feel is it's horse shit. Mm-hmm. And that's the main marching song. I think we should wrap up in a minute, but I think that's the main thing for me is that, we have a lot of issues as a country or as a race or as a this or that. So why add the N-word into it?
It's because it's fun to say.
Isn't.
Yes, it is.
No, it is not.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
No, it is not.
My nigga.
No,
but here's what I'm saying.
Different. That's different.
But here's the bottom line is I think when you get everybody alone and you just conversate with them, we're okay. Things are not as things are fucked up. Yeah. But things have always kind of been fucked up and also been fantastic.
Most of the time one-on-one. There was watch there was one documentary on the white power movement today, or the white nationalist movement. This one chick who made it was she's Middle Eastern Muslim. Right. And one of the guys quit the thing after being friends with her. After she made this movie, and he's trying to talk about, she's asking him hard-hitting questions about, and he's finding it uncomfortable to answer them to her. Why? Because she's really nice. Right. He's trying, and then also then not only that, later on, realize when he learns of all of the hateful emails and messages she would get, death threats and all that stuff, he ends up leaving that movement. Why? Because he didn't know that these fellow white nationalists were so rude.
Right, and why can't I just want us to go forward?
What a dumb motherfucker!
I know, right? I just want both sides, and especially right now, the left side, to enter into. Listen, to what I'm saying. To enter into their idea that possibly dumb, immature Trump is probably fine too. Anyway,
No, he unites everybody to hate him. That's what like Chappelle said. But I'm just still, man. I don't understand why you.
He's probably a human with.
You shouldn't be saying the N-word, Pete. That's all I'm going to tell you.
I'm gonna keep saying it. Absolutely,
you shouldn't.
I'm
gonna tell
I trust
anybody who's hearing this podcast. You've heard it. You've heard it here first. Pete N-word Feliciano.
I'm 3/16 black, nigga. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not kidding. But anyway,
Are you? Are you
Yeah,
3/16 black? Then you're allowed to say it technically.
Yeah, but I'm not just fighting it for me.
Why? No, see this whole thing. No, if you really are entitled to say
doing
it,
a dance right now.
There's conviction. You know what? There's a comedian that we know. This a friend of mine, Ahmed El Rahman, and and he's got. Funny thing is, he looks like an old professor in a young man's body. And one of the things me and my friend comedian, he's part of hashtag Hella Funny. They put on shows out here in the city.
I've seen the show.
And Dirty Mike, who's one of the regular hosts. One of the times we were joking around with him is that because he's one of these black dudes that when he says nigga, he sounds like a white dude saying it. Mm-hmm. And he's like one of the few black dudes that just doesn't sound right. Doesn't say, yeah, it's like, dude, right. Don't say it. Like, and I even said in my act to illustrate, I'm like, I sound more natural saying nigga than you do. Right. And I don't say it. Right. So if I were you, I just wouldn't say it at all. And it was one of his kind of, and it was a point, and it got a bunch of laughs that night. We were having fun at his expense and all that. And but he's also, to his credit, he's written his jokes and now he's actually, because he's also a young comic, so he wanted to make a point of like, he's like, no, I've been, I can't say it, man. I've heard, whatever. And so, but also it's one of those things too where I'm like, isn't really a priority to like. I feel like it's still one of those things where it's like, why should it be a priority?
Right. My only issue is someone telling me not to say something or to say something.
That's never a good reason to.
It absolutely is.
No, it isn't. Never is. Man.
I'm not being reckless with it. I'm not being reckless with it.
You know who likes to do that type of shit? Cunts. They like to do that shit.
Excuse me, but cunt is an offensive word. I mean, women are systematically.
Cunts, man. You're a cunt, Pete.
Yeah, women are cunts too. All right. Anyway, do you have something to plug?
Not after this fucking horse shit. No, nobody fucking wants to. Come see me. Not say the N-word.
Hang on. Let me see if I have anything to plug.
I have shows all over the place. You can find. Yeah, just follow me on Instagram. Yeah, I post every week a list of my weekly shows. But we have a regular show in Livermore every Thursday at 7:30 at Sanctuary Ultra Lounge. It's a free comedy show, 7:30 to 9, different lineup each week, with some house comedians or resident comedians each month. But yeah, come through. It's free. We just ask for tips, and we need more people to come check out the show. And then every third Monday, usually of the month, we have a free show in Concord at Vinny's Bar and Grill, and that's a wonderful show that we do again once a month. Great place, and we have some good comics of variety of experiences. And yeah, I'm always performing all over the Bay Area. At the end of this month, September 27th through the 30th, I'll be hosting at Rooster T. Feathers.
Nice.
But before then, I'll also be performing all over the place. I'm in Tracy Saturday the 22nd. I'll be at, look me up. Comedy Oakland tonight, not after that. But I host at the Setup pretty often. I'm doing these shows called the Don't Tell Comedy Shows, which are shows that pop up at places. And just, follow me on Instagram at mean_Dave. You can try adding me on Facebook, but if we don't have mutual friends, you may just be in my queue. You can still follow my Facebook page. I keep it public so you can see what shows I'm doing. And yeah, you can see me. I got sets on YouTube too if you just want to see one set from a while ago and don't want to bother yourself with any of this bullshit. And I wouldn't blame you either because comedy sucks.
I'm going to be playing at Duvin Wine Bar on September 29th.
Yeah, go see
Oakland.
Pete's racist ass. No.
And then in San Francisco on the 30th at Amelie Wine Bar.
Nice.
So I'm doing the wine bar circuit.
Wine bars. Where people want to hear they're screaming for the N-word.
Right.
Songs about the N-word.
Thank you very much for coming.
Oh, thank you.
I appreciate
I had a wonderful
you being
time.
A
It was a great way to kill time before my show in Oakland tonight.
Exactly.
So.
Next time, let's do it without mics.
Oh, that's fine.
I'll go watch Jackie Brown.
All right, I'm going to go jack off. Jack off my Brown.
Good night, everybody.